Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be reviewing the Pam Bondi hearing. Just a little bit of background for those of you who aren't super into politics, or maybe you're from a different country. Pam Bondi is the Trump administration's attorney general. And what it means to be attorney general is that you are the top law enforcement officer of the entire country. In fact, as far as I understand, I think the Attorney General is the only office under the president that's actually explicitly called for in the Constitution. The other offices, the other agencies are created later by Congress, but Attorney General, I believe, is explicitly stated in the Constitution. So with that in mind, Pam Bondi would be the one that is, in charge of the entire organization of the federal law enforcement apparatus. So that includes like the FBI, the CIA, and any kind of prosecutions of crimes, investigations at the federal level. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the first clip for today. This is Representative Neguse, Joe Neguse, and he's going to be talking to Pam Bondi.
Attorney General Bondi, 6 days ago, you posted online, quote, "If you come for law enforcement, the Trump administration will come for you," end quote. I want to show you just a brief video. It's about 30 seconds, and I'll ask you a couple questions about it.
You guys are disgusting, man. Hey, you guys are disgusting. I'm former law enforcement. You're disgusting. You are the Nazi. You are the Gestapo. You can't see it because you're chasing your pension, right? Your pension, your retirement, right? That's what runs your...
So to be clear, this is January 6th. Again, for those that aren't really super aware, January 6, 2021 was a day that Donald Trump riled his supporters up to go march on the Capitol. It was the day that the election was supposed to be certified. This is the election that Joe Biden beat Donald Trump in. Donald Trump and his accomplices, his followers, whatever you want to call it, the other people that work for him as lawyers, they tried to challenge the election results. They tried, there's a phone call of Donald Trump reaching out to the Secretary of State in Georgia, and the Secretary of State's the one who runs the elections in the state. The Constitution gives the authority to run the elections to the states, not to the president. But Donald Trump tried to call Georgia. He tried to get them to find the amount of votes that he needed in order to overcome the loss to Joe Biden. So they try to do things like that. They tried to sue multiple states. They tried to get audits and recounts, and they got multiple audits and recounts. And despite all the efforts that they made, I think it was more than like 50 cases, none of it ever panned out to show that there was any kind of interference or voter fraud reaching the degree that would allow Donald Trump to have won the election. So they exhausted every means necessary. They made up narratives that they never, still to this day, ever managed to provide evidence for. And despite all that, he riled his followers up on January 6th to come to the Capitol in an attempt to get his supporters to stop the certification of the vote so that he could stay in power. And while they were doing this, they rioted and they broke into the Capitol and were assaulting police officers. Donald Trump was actually, this is a part of the story not a lot of people talk about, Donald Trump was sitting behind the scenes as president, as commander-in-chief, whose like primary authority is the safety and security of the country and the protection of the Constitution. He sat for 3 hours. He didn't do anything about it. He didn't make any press, meeting. He kind of disappeared for 3 hours while his supporters were assaulting the Capitol. And while they were chanting out, hang Mike Pence, that's his vice president, who needed to, as part of the ceremony of certifying the election, basically read out the electors to Congress. So the crowd was cheering, hang him. And Donald Trump, instead of sending the National Guard to protect Congress, to protect his own vice president, while his crowd was chanting, hang Mike Pence outside of the Capitol, Donald Trump tweeted out in support of his supporters, saying that Mike Pence should do the right thing. Another thing that he was doing was, while his supporters were assaulting the Capitol for 3 hours, he was not calling for National Guard. He was not trying to send more reinforcements to the police. Instead, what he was doing was he was calling congressmen behind the scenes, Republican congressmen, while they were under siege by his supporters that were getting violent. He called congressmen to tell them that they should do what the supporters wanted them to do what his supporters, his rioters, wanted them to do, which was decertify or fail to certify the election. So that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at video of these rioters at the Capitol. And there is a guy here, I think he's a little bit off camera to the left here, by the name of, what was his name here? We'll get his name in a second here, but at any rate, he was a rioter on January 6th. He was explicitly threatening officers, as we saw here. We can rewind a little bit. Jared Wise. This man's name is Jared Wise. So Jared Wise, and you can hear him here. He's talking to Capitol Police. That's who he's referring to. That's when he says, "You guys are disgusting. You guys are disgusting." And I think in this clip, he also makes explicit threats to police officers. I believe that might be the case. Well, anyways, after these events, he was one of the people that were charged and a jury found him guilty. And we're going to hear about this in a moment.
Hey, you guys are disgusting. I'm former law enforcement. You're disgusting. You are the Nazi. You are the Gestapo. You can't see it because you're chasing your pension, right? Your pension, your retirement, right? That's what runs your life, your retirement. The sad thing is they're not even going to get their pension because it's going to be worthless. And shame on you. And shame on you. Shame on you. Yeah.
You hear that? To the Capitol Police, he says, F them. He says, kill them. This is while other rioters are attacking police. You can see it on the right.
Attorney General Bondi, that man works for you now, right?
Again, remember, Attorney General Pam Bondi is the top law enforcement officer of the entire country. And what Nagoose is saying here is that man, Jared Wise, who was at the Capitol as a rioter on January 6th to try to overthrow the election, who was calling for police to be killed while his fellow rioters were attacking the police, that man was pardoned by Donald Trump, and he now works for the Justice Department. He now works under Pam Bondi, who is supposed to lead as the chief law enforcement officer of the country. Do you understand how corrupt, how dangerous, how violent that is?
Who was that, Congressman?
The man in that video, the one who was in the police-worn body cam footage, the one allegedly yelling, "Kill him," at police officers on January 6th, his name is Jared Wise.
He does work for us.
He works for you at the Department.
So look at that. She doesn't even try to deny it. She doesn't try to make excuses for it. She's almost proud to say this. Yes, he does work for us. How is it that someone who is supposed to represent the fidelity of the law, law enforcement, upholding the law, is just blatantly telling the entire country that, yes, somebody who was calling for the death of police officers, not just the death, the killing of them on January 6th as a rioter trying to overthrow an election, that yes, he does work for me. No problem. Yeah, of course he works for me. No big deal.
Of Justice.
He does.
This is an individual whom a federal grand jury indicted for 2 felonies and 4 misdemeanors related to his participation in the attack on January
2 felonies
6th.
and
One of those
4
charges was
misdemeanors.
forcibly assaulting, resisting, opposing, impeding, intimidating, and interfering with police with
So
the
he
intent to commit
he
another
assaulted
felony.
police officers that day. Not only
This
did he
is
call
who
for them
you
to be killed,
choose
he also participated
as the
in
chief
taking
law
up violence
enforcement
against
officer of
the
United
police
States of
officers.
America to hire at the Department of Justice someone on video yelling "kill him" at police officers, right?
I believe he was pardoned by President Trump.
Oh,
So in her mind, the argument that she's making is that Donald Trump pardoned him. In other words, Donald Trump, with his authority as president, is allowed to basically excuse people from crimes that they've committed. So this excuse here is not he didn't do those things, not he wasn't charged, not we have someone working for us who was found guilty of all these things. Her excuse is the president that I work for, he doesn't care. He's allowing it anyways. And I don't have a problem with it either, because she, you can clearly see here, she doesn't have a problem with it. So yes, we are hiring people who are violent, criminal, felonious thugs, but we can, and there's nothing you can do about it.
He was pardoned. You're right. You're right. Pardoned by President Trump for his offense. Pardoned for yelling "kill him" at police officers. And yet you expect...
What does that say about the mentality of the president, by the way, that he would pardon people like that?
Seriously.
And what does it say about the larger Republican Party and the Republican voter that they think this kind of thing is okay? When they talk about political violence, both sides, all that stuff, right? Just keep in mind how violent, how corrupt, how condoning of political violence it is for this political party and all of their supporters to allow someone like that to work for the Department of Justice.
The chief law enforcement officer of the United States refuse to even condemn what that individual whom you've now hired did. But in any event, let's talk a little bit about some of the other divisions within the Department of Justice and what's happened over the last year. You're familiar with the public integrity section of the DOJ's criminal division. I think it's referred to as PIN. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know which presidential administration under which the PIN was first created?
I can tell you what administration that the weaponization was ended under.
I'll reclaim my time. This was
not an answer to the question.
You don't get to reclaim your time.
Madam
It
Attorney
does.
General.
He absolutely does. Those are the rules of Congress. These are separate but equal branches of government. She is not above a congressman. In fact, I would say a congressman's probably above her in the hierarchy of things here. She is in Congress giving testimony to Congress. She's not in charge. He has this. These are the rules of how congressional hearings work. He is in charge of his time. All the members in this committee, they get to ask her questions and they get time to talk. And I think it's about 5 minutes each. The member who's currently speaking, who has the floor, he gets to decide, if you're not answering my questions, I'm going to shut you down and I'm reclaiming my time because I have 5 minutes. Those are my 5 minutes. I'm the congressman here in Congress. Those are my 5 minutes. When she says you don't get to reclaim your time, she is power tripping. She believes that her position in the executive branch supersedes Congress. She thinks she doesn't have to follow the rules.
Mr. Chairman, will you explain to the witness that he does reclaim his time?
Because I don't answer a question to your satisfaction?
Mr. Chairman.
Madam Attorney General, the time belongs to the gentleman from...
Notice how long it takes, by the way, for the chairman. Now, the chairman is the one who is kind of overseeing that committee. Because the Republicans are the majority right now, he's in charge, and he's from the Republican Party. Notice how long it took him to enforce the rules of the committee. They had to beg him. They had to get multiple members on the Democratic side to tell him, hey, enforce the rules. What are you doing?
Colorado.
The president under which PIN was created was Gerald Ford. It was created after Watergate. I'm not asking a question, Madam Attorney General. The administration under which it was created was Gerald Ford. When you first started as the Attorney General of the United States, there were 35 people working in that office. There are now 2 people working in that office because you have gutted it. How many people work for the national cryptocurrency?
This, I don't think it'd be called an administration, but this task force or whatever you want to call it that he was talking about, this PIN, I go back and make sure I have the name right here.
Enforcement team in the criminal division. It's the Madam Attorney General with the public hired within the Department of Justice. But in any event, let's talk a little bit about some of the other divisions within the Department of Justice and what's happened over the last year.
The Public Integrity Office.
The integrity section of the DOJ. I wasn't a trick.
Okay, and so what this division is, it would be a division that, if I understand it correctly, would be internally focused. So as an agency, as the law enforcement agency, rather, most of their mission is going to be looking at civilians, sometimes foreign agents and whatnot in the CIA side, to see if people are committing crimes. The Public Integrity Office is probably inward looking. to put a check and balance on the agency itself, to make sure the agency is not being used corruptly or nefariously. And as our Representative Nagu said here, it was created in the fallout of the Watergate scandal. And the Watergate scandal was when President Nixon was corruptly utilizing the Department of Justice in order to spy on his political opposition. So this division was created in order to try to make sure things like that don't happen. Think about what that means. Not only did Pam Bondi acknowledge that she's hiring people who were involved in violence against police officers on behalf of her political party, she also gutted the division within her agency that's in charge of overseeing whether the agency is being used for corrupt means or not. All of this points in the direction of blatant, rampant corruption and trying to make sure that the agency that's supposed to serve the American people, supposed to be neutral, is partisan and allowing for corruption and lawbreaking on the side of her political side, Republicans.
You don't get to reclaim your time.
Madam Attorney General,
because I don't like it.
Mr. Chairman, will you explain the
under which PIN was created, the administration under which it was created was Gerald Ford. When you first started as the Attorney General of the United States, how many people work for the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team in the criminal division today?
Can I answer the question about PIN?
I've asked you a question.
You should have answered it when he gave you the chance to answer it, but you wanted to play games. So now we're moving on, okay? Sorry.
You've asked me a question, but you don't
How
want
many
the answer.
people work for the
I'm not
National
gonna answer your questions the way you
Cryptocurrency
want.
Enforcement Team? You won't answer how many
I'll
people?
answer PIN.
Understand too, by the way, that the House of Representatives having these hearings, the purpose of it is American citizens vote for their representative. Every district sends a representative to Congress. This is my representative from this part of California. They go to Congress. They're supposed to represent me and the other people who live in this area in Congress. This is a representative for Kentucky. They represent this group of voters in Kentucky. They're in Congress. During these hearings, the representative is representing the interests and concerns of their constituents, a country of, for, and by the people, right?
PIN will not be
you know what?
weaponized.
You know what?
What's
Madam
funny
Attorney
about
General,
this?
I'll say to the chairman.
What's funny about this?
Chairman, you know what the answer is? And I think I
What's
understand
funny
why the
about
Attorney General
this?
does not want to answer the question. Because you eliminated the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team last year. So I understand why you don't want to tell the American people who work.
And understand too that the Trump administration, members of the Trump administration, have been involved in alleged cryptocurrency scandals. And they have accepted, while serving in the government, have accepted deals for cryptocurrency, creation and payments through cryptocurrency. So why would they eliminate that division? That's probably why.
Who murdered people?
Mr. Chairman, will you stop the clock so his time is not wasted by the witness?
I've been very generous with allowing extra time when we have these little disputes.
I understand.
You got the time, Mr. Goose.
I might as well ask the chairman these questions.
I'd be happy
because
to answer
what
some
is
of your
what's
questions.
profound, the questions I've
Profound?
asked,
The crime in your
I've
district.
asked, Mr. Chairman, are not trick questions. They're not gotcha questions. They're actually basic questions about how the Department of Justice functions. And the unwillingness of this Attorney General.
So let's speed this up because I'm not sure there's going to be anything else
in
here.
good faith, when a member of Congress asks how many people work at the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team and the Attorney General refuses to answer it, it is not a coincidence. Making money hand over fist, Mr. Chairman. And
Okay, so that's Nagoose. Let's move on to the next clip here. We have Representative Goldman. It says here, Goldman has explosive fight with Bondi as he brings out emails from Epstein to Maxwell.
From New York, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms.
From New
Bondi,
York.
I went over to the department yesterday for a couple of hours to review some of the unredacted materials. And
Now understand this, if you read the Epstein Files Transparency Act, what it allows is the administration to actually make certain redactions. However, and I think the media hasn't really told people that this is the case. However, those redactions, the rationale for them has to be made available to Congress. Congress is the check and balance on the executive branch. And so the congressman here is saying the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi here is testifying. They made it so that congressmen can come to the Department of Justice and review those redactions, those files, the unredacted versions. So that's what he's referring to. He has seen them, seen aspects of the files that the public does not have access to.
And I am looking forward to your detailed explanation for why you have withheld almost half of the documents, which is required by the bill. Now, obviously, there are 3 million documents, so I didn't get through much. But one thing I didn't see was the client list that you said you had on your desk a year ago. I did, however, find a couple of important documents. An 86-page prosecution memo from the Southern District of New York and a draft indictment from Florida against Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. For reasons that I cannot understand nor are permitted by the bill, they were still redacted, even for members of Congress. So, Ms. Bondi,
That's
will
not
you
legal.
commit right here to immediately providing those 2 documents in unredacted form to members of Congress? Not a complicated question.
Well, I guess it is for you because you have a law degree and those are privileged.
Okay.
No, they're not.
They're not privileged, but we will discuss that later. I also found an email that I have right here from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell that was unredacted, and it included notes of statements that Donald Trump made about his prior relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Notice, by the way, that she really didn't answer that question
There is no
either.
reason for this to be hidden from the American people. There is no privilege, there is no attorney-client privilege, and I see you're checking with your staff, and I can assure you, staff, this is not under attorney-client privilege because it was sent from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. Will you commit to publicly providing the unredacted version of this so that the American people can understand the extent of Donald Trump's lies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
You're about as good of a lawyer today as you were when you tried to impeach President Trump in 2016. Have
Notice
you
how
apologized for that?
this isn't an answer. This is a deflection.
Will you unredact this? Will you
were
unredact
lead
this?
counsel on that privilege.
I'm asking you, will you unredact this?
Well, this is the Donald Trump administration strategy, right? It's always stay on the attack, do not defend your own position, don't substantively answer questions, deflect and attack the other person.
Privileged.
Privileged, of course.
It's not. It doesn't work that way.
I look forward
Okay.
to discussing this more. Now, these are obviously improper redactions.
And let me stop for a minute.
I'm talking. I'm
if they're
talking.
not privileged,
Quiet.
don't yell at me. If they're not
Mr. Chairman, would you
privileged,
stop the clock? This is on your time. It's not on.
Notice she was about to say, okay, well, if they're not privileged, okay, so then why did you say they were privileged? Obviously, she probably says that because she's just defending what she's been doing. But it seems like she's not actually sure if it's privileged or not. And now she's trying to caveat, trying to cover her base and say, well, you know what? If it was privileged, and she was going to make some excuse here. I like this energy, by the way, from Representative Goldman here. When she tries to cut him off and everything, he just says, quiet, you know, almost throwing that Trump line, quiet piggy, back around towards them. They are not superior to us. They are not of a position that's higher than the representatives. She thinks that she's in control. She is in the House of Congress. She is not in the executive branch. She is in a hearing in their house. Congress is their authority. When he says he's reclaiming his time when he's talking, that's not a fight. That's not a he said, she said thing. That's his decision. He is in control there. And I encourage more Democrats in positions of office to behave this way. The Trump administration likes to behave this way. They like they themselves, the people who work for them, to behave with this kind of belligerence. And you don't have to do it in such a way where you are attacking people for no reason. But also, when they are behaving this way, you have every authority to just give it right back. Quiet. I'm talking. This is the House of Congress. You're not in charge, okay? Because they like to try to set up to the American people, to the other members of the government, kind of this vibe, this notion, this impression that because they talk from a position of authority, from a position that they are in charge and everybody else has to just follow along, if nobody pushes back on that, people then start to just kind of believe that's how it's supposed to be. That's what it actually is. And if Democrats reassert that, no, you have checks and balances on you, we are in control of Congress. When I tell you quiet, you quiet. It's challenging to push back and make sure that that balance of authority is reaffirmed in the public among the officials who are watching all over the government. That's important.
Mr.
They're
Goldman.
not
Even though you
privileged.
used your
If we review
improper
them and they're not-
redactions
You'll like my answer.
to
If we
continue
review
to
them and they're not
protect
privileged,
Donald
Time belongs to
we
the
will
member.
be happy to release them.
She's being
Stop the
out of
clock.
line.
We'll stop the clock.
She's
Time
not in
belongs to the member.
charge here.
Go ahead.
even though you used improper redactions to protect Donald Trump and other predators associated with Jeffrey Epstein, you did the exact opposite thing with the survivors and victims of this scheme. So their identification information was really the only thing required to be redacted.
So the Department of Justice did release files where they failed to redact the names of victims, which the Epstein File Transparency Act requires them to do per law. They are supposed to redact the names of victims to protect the victim's privacy. They're not supposed to, per that same law, they're not supposed to redact the names of suspects, perpetrators. So what he's saying here is true, which is that the Department of Justice, now the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi's Department of Justice, they claim that it was a mistake. The Department of Justice leaked multiple victims' names on those files that they failed to redact. However, in some of those documents, on that same exact document, oftentimes they did redact the name of suspects. And so it calls into question, if you guys are making the excuse that it was an error on your part, it seems like you guys were really deliberate and really careful and went out of your way to make sure you were redacting all the names of the people that were suspects, the people who were potentially guilty of being involved in the sex trafficking. But somehow you failed at that same time to redact the name of victims. It doesn't pass the sniff test.
And it was not. And it's clear this was not a mistake. This was not by accident. This was not because you only had 30 days when you really used 75, and that doesn't even include all the hours last March that you were redacting it. But I'll tell you why it's clear it wasn't a mistake. There is an email entitled Epstein Victim List. There are 32 names. One is redacted.
This is what I was talking about here.
So someone looked at it and decided to redact something. And I will tell you that that is clearly intentional to intimidate these survivors and victims. Now, in an interview last week,
How will you tell me that's intentional?
in an interview
just
last
laid it
week,
out for you, but-
Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche
You can't go off script.
said that any victim that wants to speak with the department has done so, hopefully. Well, thanks to the incredibly brave people sitting here behind you, we can actually ask them if that's true. Now, with the survivors and victims who are here, please stand up one more time. Just by show of hands, how many of you or your loved ones actually have...
The thumbnail for this stream is actually those victims who are standing up and raising their hand. I know it doesn't show it from this angle that the camera's focusing on. Think about that for a minute. Her Department of Justice said that they interviewed everybody who was a victim. And that's not even like a little mistake. It's a blatant lie. They don't care about straight up lying to the American people about something so serious.
Have met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony and
Knowing, by the way,
evidence.
that it's super easy for the media and the public to
And of
find
those
out
of
that
you
they didn't do
who have
this.
not met, which is everyone,
That
how
they
many
lied
of you
about it.
have reached out either individually or through a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony and evidence? All of them.
So not only did her Department of Justice lie about they didn't actually reach out to all the victims, but the victims themselves try to reach out and they didn't get a reply back.
And of those of you,
Why
all
is
of
that?
you who have reached out, how many of you
What do
were
you guys think the
denied
reason
or
for that is?
ignored by the Department of Justice? All of them. And despite the shameful and despicable efforts by Ms. Bondi and her department to intimidate you, how many of you are still willing to speak to the Department of Justice? All of them. Well, Ms. Bondi, it looks like you have some more witnesses
Gentleman's
to
time has
talk to,
expired.
and I yield back.
We will go to the good gentleman from North Carolina, Congressman Knott. Thank
May
you.
I have a moment, Congressman?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Here we go. Here's a photograph. This is why he wanted to repeat everything that had been said previously on Epstein. This is his state, New York. You probably don't even know who this is.
Okay, so what she does throughout this hearing is she doesn't answer the questions about what her department is doing. Instead, what she has this binder, and it seems like her staffers prepared it for her. Her binder has a list of like insults or attacks or like, this is what's going on in your state, right? Every state's going to have crime. Every country in the world has crime. And so what she's done is she's cherry picking, like, here's an example of a criminal in your state. Therefore what? Like the implication there, I guess, is supposed to be like, you're a hypocrite. The implication is supposed to be like, why don't you worry about what you're doing in your state? It's a whataboutism. It's a deflection. Even if we were to grant that the person that she's using that attack against isn't doing the job that they're supposed to be doing for their state, even if we grant that, and I don't grant that, but even if we were to grant that, that doesn't mean that her administration or her DOJ is not, not interviewing victims, is refusing to interview those victims, is refusing to release all the Epstein files, is redacting stuff that shouldn't be redacted. It's meant to serve as a deflection and a way of not actually being accountable for what she's doing.
Wahid Mohammed from Afghanistan.
Yes, because I'm no longer a prosecutor.
Convicted of assault.
You'll notice
he
that
represents.
all the people that she'll bring up as criminals are immigrants or non-white individuals, because the whole, talking points from the right, from the Republican Party, is about fear-mongering about other people, these scary foreigners, these scary non-white people, and using that to, again, deflect attention away from what her administration is doing. It works for their base, for their audience, because her base, or the Republican base and audience, they are highly susceptible to these kinds of like fear-mongering over non-whites and immigrants.
New York. Wow. Yet he doesn't care about the illegal aliens convicted of crimes. Assault and homicide.
By the way, when did he ever say he doesn't care about that?
He doesn't care about his constituents. Here we go. Arson, El Salvador, Miguel Palacios. Fermin Flores Ramales, Mexico, rape.
Let's talk about the 70% of immigrants who are detained without a criminal conviction or arrest.
Stop the clock. Stop the clock.
I don't think that's the greatest response, but some of those people that she brought up, they've been arrested, charged with crimes. Some of them have been deported and everything. So to act like, when she holds that up, you're not doing enough, why don't you care about this? Like, those were taken care of. He never said that he had an issue with those criminals being taken care of. It's all just there to be a deflection. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next one. Next one, we have Representative Kamlager Dove. I don't know how to pronounce that right. Hopefully they'll say her name here. Hold on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Attorney General, for being here today. I want to talk with you about an issue on which there is broad bipartisan agreement, the importance of ensuring trust between...
And I'm going to do like 1.5 times because I have a lot of clips to get through, and I don't want to be here all day, so we'll do that.
The American public and those government officials who wield powerful law enforcement responsibilities. So, Attorney General, would you agree that it is important for law enforcement leaders to be honest?
Of course, as well as members of Congress.
Thank you. And would you include yourself as a law enforcement leader?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. President Trump has also, he has referred to himself as the chief law enforcement officer of this country. So do you believe that President Trump is honest?
He is the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. And
not an answer to that question.
This country safe.
Do you
he is keeping this world
It's
safe.
a simple question.
Of course I do.
That's
okay, thank you.
Not an answer to the question. And whether or not he's the commander-in-chief has nothing to do with whether or not he's honest or not.
Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and their dog were brutally murdered in their home. And your USA's office in Minnesota investigated this crime and obtained a 6-count indictment of the murder suspect, stating that he had intent to kill, injure, harass, and intimidate Minnesota legislators. And I have the copy right here. I read through it. Yet a few weeks ago, President Trump suggested publicly that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was behind these murders, posting on his Truth Social account a video raising this conspiracy theory. And it wasn't true. And you know it wasn't true, or else you would not have brought an indictment against the subject. Do you know what else Trump has said? He has said he has cut gas prices by 1,400%. False. That he won the 2020 election.
Actually, gas is down to $1.99 a gallon, thanks to
that
President
he didn't
Trump.
know Epstein.
Maybe $5 in California.
It's my time, Mr. Chair. That he sent water to LA during the wildfires. False. That Governor Westmore of Maryland called him the greatest president of his lifetime. False. So many tales, too many to keep up. But I want to go back to what he said about Tim Walz. Do you agree that President...
Now, I mean, obviously, like, some of these they're lies, right? They're technically lies. Maybe you might think that these are small lies or no big deal. It's just, you know, politics mudflinging at each other. The reason that she's bringing this up, the importance of this, is that in order to have a Justice Department that is trustworthy, that we know isn't corruptly applying the law, you have to trust that those people have fidelity, the people in charge, that they are honest, that they are doing honest application of the law. If we have an administration where, from the top down, the president himself is a rampant liar, and Attorney General in Pam Bondi, who covers for that lying, in that context, every time that they're involved in shady business, you can't really take their word seriously. You can't trust that they're being honest. You can't trust when they're doing things if it looks corrupt. You can't trust their alibis on those things. It matters if you are constantly involved in lying and dishonesty, because then it characterizes every action that you have going forward. We don't start every single day anew and pretend like we don't remember what you did the day before.
President Trump undermined public trust in law enforcement by suggesting that Governor Walz was involved in the Hortman murders.
I'm not familiar with that statement.
Well, that is a disappointing response.
And how can you not be familiar with that statement?
Donald Trump have zero credibility, because I know, and you know, it was a right-wing extremist who murdered the Hortmans. And you and the president are being dishonest with the American people. Last fall, after the horrific shooting of Charlie Kirk, President Trump was asked if there were extremists on both the left and the right. And his exact words were, "I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy." Do you agree with this statement? You're taking too long, Madam Attorney General, but you know the answer, because your own department has addressed the question. In 24, the DOJ's research arm issued a report on domestic terrorism, stating that the far number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism.
This data has been around for a long time. It's been researched by multiple different agencies. A lot of it comes from the DOJ itself, the Department of Justice. Let's type this in right here. Right wing versus left violence. Not only government organizations have looked into this, other private organizations have looked into this. The Cato Institute has looked into this. The Cato Institute is libertarian, so they're not really Democrat or Republican. They all arrive at the same conclusion, and the data has been pretty consistent for decades. So if you look at this here, the right, or the right-wing violence is in red. The blue is, light blue is radical Islamic terrorism. The dark blue is left wing. The way you look at a graph like this particular graph, it's not that this blue line is above the red line. It's that this bar represents the total for that year. And of that total for that year, the red part is the part that's for the right wing. The little blue part is for the radical Islamic. When you look at this chart, what you see here is between 1972 and 2022, you have some periods, right here in the 70s where left-wing political violence was higher. Since then, it's pretty much overwhelmingly been right-wing violence. You have the same thing here. This is another chart from the Cato Institute. Right-wing 391, Islamic 143, left-wing 65. And so this data used to exist on the government's website for the public to see and reference. After Charlie Kirk's murder, people on social media, in the news media, they pointed out political violence has been predominantly from the right wing, because Donald Trump and other right-wing figures were saying after Charlie Kirk's murder, the left is so politically violent. The left is responsible for the political violence, you know, trying to cast it all as it's mostly a left-wing problem. They're primarily responsible. That data had existed on the official government website. After that, the Trump administration decided to pull that information down. They are actively engaged in hiding information from the public to spin a political partisan narrative, using the official government resources to do so.
Terrorism and domestic violence extremist. The DOJ published their report, and after the president made those comments, the DOJ took the report down. And I sent you a letter asking you a simple question. Why did the Justice Department remove the data that shows right-wing extremists have killed more innocent people than left-wing extremists?
Did you refer to immigration enforcement as domestic terrorism?
You should answer my question, Your Honor.
Notice how she doesn't answer the question.
My time, but you won't.
And again, the deflection is always going to go back to immigrants. Immigrants scary.
Restore the data. Stop scrubbing important data from your website. Stop taking down reports that you know the American people need to know about. There are violent, dangerous people out here with real threats.
Okay.
And the
There are in your
dishonesty from your agency comes from the covering up of these threats that could hurt American people and put our lives at rest. Do better. And with that, I yield back, Mr.
The lady yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Okay.
May I have one
And the
more?
reality is, I mean, I hate to say this, but telling her, like, you need to do this, you should do this better, they're not going to listen. They don't care.
You may.
It's
Her
not going to
district
change.
includes Culver City.
Until we
And
get
she's
new
not
leadership
talking
in there.
about any crime in her districts. Nothing about helping crime in her district. She's not even worth getting in.
And by the way, just so you know, this is federal. This is Congress at the federal level, meaning for the entire country. This isn't a state legislature on the state level. Now, the representatives from each state that go to the federal Congress, yes, they are trying to represent their constituents from their state, but their scope is larger. They're looking at the larger entire United States system as a whole. The people who deal with crime at the state level are not the representatives in this committee. So for her to say, like, you don't care about crime in your state, number one, she never said that. You don't know that. You didn't ask her that. But number two, her job, her role is not focused at that state level. There are officials who handle that. There is a attorney general at the state level. Every state has one, basically. There's a Congress at each state. Each state has their own state Congress that deals with those things. You have law enforcement at the local level that deals with those things. This is, again, just a way to deflect from accountability from Pam Bondi, because this is a hearing about her agency. This isn't a hearing about what's going on in a particular state. This is about what her agency is doing. And this kind of response is meant to deflect away from that.
Into the details.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News.
Okay. All right. Anyways, so now we go to this one. This one is a longer compilation. It has a few different members. So we're going to speed this one up. I don't want to be here for forever. Okay. Let's go ahead and get this one started. And we start with, now this is kind of going backwards because this is Jim Jordan, who's the chairman of the committee. His statements, his opening statements at the beginning of this hearing.
Statements, the chairs now recognize 18 cities, 11 states, 3 counties, and the District of Columbia are sanctuary jurisdictions, accounting for 31% of the population in.
And what a sanctuary jurisdiction is, or a sanctuary city, because of the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, the way our system's set up, a federalized system, the states have a level of autonomy and authority unto themselves where they don't have to necessarily help the federal government. They cannot impede the federal government, but there are areas where the states are allowed to kind of do things their own way. And the beauty of that system is that if you don't like the way a certain state does things, you can kind of go to another state. That's kind of the idea there. So sanctuary cities exist, and what sanctuary cities are is basically when you have immigrants, we have illegal immigrants, when you have legal immigrants. I'm just explaining how this works. I'm not endorsing or not endorsing it. I'm just explaining how this works. Certain states will decide, sometimes their voters will vote on it, that we don't want to help the federal government with tracking down, immigrant workers, let's say, and deporting them. And the 10th Amendment allows for the states to not do that. Much in the same way, by the way, that the federal government has a federal background check system for firearm purchases. And Republican states oftentimes used the 10th Amendment to say, hey, we don't want to participate in providing you data for that system. This is how it cuts both ways. That 10th Amendment separation of powers cuts both ways. It allows Republican states to do things that maybe Democrats don't really like. It also allows Democratic states to do things that Republicans sometimes don't like. They cannot impede the federal government, but they don't necessarily have to help the federal government with these sorts of things. That's what he means by sanctuary states or cities, jurisdictions.
31% of the American people, almost 1/3 of the American people, live in a city, county, or state where the left-wing leadership tells local law enforcement not to work with federal law enforcement. Now, what does that mean in practice? Let's look at Abraham Gonzalez, who on September 20th, 2023, was arrested by Border Patrol for illegally entering the United States. And of course, the Biden administration released him into the country. 5 months later, February 26, 2024, Mr. Gonzalez is charged with assault. 2 weeks later, March 11, 2024, he's charged with felony motor vehicle theft, stole a car. And on March 20th, 2024, 9 days later, he's arrested by the Denver police and placed in the Denver Justice Center. 6 days later, March 22nd, 2024, ICE sends a detainer notice to the Denver Justice Center saying this: if you're going to release Mr. Gonzalez, can you give us a heads up? Can you let us know maybe 48 hours before you're going to release this guy so we can come apprehend him there at the jail? And remember, a detainer is a final order of removal from a court where this individual's committed some removable offense. But on February 28th, 2025, Abraham Gonzalez is released to the streets. In fact, we could put that up.
Now, taking for granted that this story is true, I'm not going to bother looking into the specific claim because this isn't the focus of this. I just want to state, and I want to show that, you know, I try to be a fair person. When it comes to violent immigrant criminals, I do think that the state should try to work with federal immigration authority because obviously we don't want violent criminals of any type running around and causing issues with, you know, the rest of the citizens here. So if this story is true, I think that's a fair criticism, and we can have that conversation.
I think you can see this release. We got the form from the Denver Justice Center. What kind of inmate was Mr. Gonzalez for those 345 days that he was in the Denver Justice Center? We have that too. Violent to the staff, keep separate. So this guy was so bad, you had to keep him away from other inmates. He'd already assaulted some staff member.
I do wonder why he was even released in the first place.
Instead of turning over to ICE agents who have come to the jail and arrest him there. And of course, we all know what happens. When the officers did apprehend Mr. Gonzalez out on the street, he assaulted one of the officers. This is what happens when you have a sanctuary jurisdiction. Right now in Minnesota, there are 1,360 detainer notices for violent offenders.
There's a flip side of this, right? Which is when you talk about sanctuary jurisdictions, he's only focusing on criminal illegal aliens, which again, I think that's fair. But a lot of, honestly, the main reason why sanctuary jurisdictions exist in the first place, it's not because the voters are like, oh, I want criminal illegal aliens running around and assaulting people. No, the main purpose is because the overwhelming vast majority of immigrants in the country are workers, even the illegal ones. And legal immigrants commit crime at a lower rate than U.S. citizens. Illegal immigrants commit an even lower crime rate than U.S. citizens. That's not to say that there's none, but it's a rate. That rate is lower. The majority of the immigrants, both legal and illegal, are here not committing crimes, but working, contributing to the economy, paying more into our system than they take out. This is true, by the way, on net. And in fact, our Social Security system has issues with solvency, meaning our population is aging and we don't have enough young workers to subsidize that aging population that's going to retire on Social Security. One thing that a lot of people don't know is immigrants pay into the Social Security system, but they can't extract from it. And so they're helping float that solvency of the Social Security system. Just keep that in mind. So the sanctuary city, the reason for it is the people who put it in place. They want to protect those immigrant workers, those immigrants that aren't committing crimes and everything. Now, I need to look in the details. I will just be honest, I don't know fully the details of these different sanctuary states and their policies, and they probably vary by state. I'm willing to imagine that the states probably, when they implement it, there's probably something about making a distinction between immigrants who are there working versus immigrants who are committing crime. I don't know how this particular case that he's talking about manifested itself. But if everything is as he says, I think that's a fair criticism. Just know, though, there's another side of the story. That's not all about criminals.
In New York State, it's 7,000. Nationwide, it's over 17,000 that we know of.
And keep in mind, 17,000, but that's with respect to a population that is 340 million. And that's not to say that any one of those cases is okay. It's not okay, right? But it's always important to understand the scope and scale of different problems.
Since President Trump's been in office, over 17,000 times a detainer was filed, and those individuals were released to the streets instead of turned over to federal law enforcement. 17,864 times. Illegals who've been charged with a crime have been released to the streets, and thereby jeopardizing the safety of the public, the safety of law enforcement, and of course the migrant themselves. And frankly, helping create the environment that results in the tragic deaths like we saw with Miss Good and Mr. Preddy. A few years ago, Governor Sarah Huckabee...
What? Did I mishear that? Is he saying that the that you have illegal immigrants who are criminals, that's what led to the killing of Alex Preddy and Renee Good? Did I hear him correctly there? Hold on a second.
And of course the migrant themselves. And thereby jeopardizing the safety of the public, the safety of
the public, safety of law enforcement, and the migrant themselves.
The environment that results in the tragic deaths.
And helping create the environment. Okay. Yeah, that's...
Years ago, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders said this in response.
And by the way, I was thinking this in my head, but I didn't really want to pause to make this point. The entire reason he's laying this out, because what does this have to do with the Department of Justice? The entire reason he's laying this out is he is Republican. He needs to defend the Republican Attorney General, Pam Bondi. And so any criticisms the Democrats are going to make about her, which are pretty legitimate criticisms, the Republican strategy is going to be, well, you know, maybe it's not perfect. You know, maybe there are some issues, but look at how bad the illegal immigrant situation is. Therefore, let's kind of look the other way because we need to deal with this immigration problem. And therefore, we can't be overly nitpicky on what the Trump administration is doing, basically, is the mindset here.
To the State of the Union address, she said the divide in America today is normal versus crazy. And it's true. Because it's crazy not to have a border, which is what we had under the previous administration. It's crazy to abolish ICE, and it's crazy.
Nobody has said that. Nobody wants to not have a border. It just comes down to how do we want to enforce the policy.
And pick them up. The mindset that says it's okay to release these guys is the same left-wing mindset that thinks it's okay to weaponize government against your political opponents. And that is exactly what we had in the previous Justice Department. The Biden-Harris Department of Justice called parents domestic terrorists. The Biden-Harris...
They like to say this. The parents that they're specifically talking about, they don't tell you this. And again, just think about this when you think about the credibility of these people. The parents that they're talking about were parents who specifically issued threats against school staff. That's what they're talking about. When the Biden administration labeled those specific parents domestic terrorists, that's the reason why. Which, by the way, is definitionally true. If you are threatening violence or committing violence against someone because of a political disagreement, which in the context of why they were getting violent, it was disagreements over school policy. That is the definition of political violence. But they make it sound like the Biden administration was just randomly going after parents for no reason and calling them, you know, terrorists or whatever.
Harris Justice Department used FBI SWAT teams to arrest pro-life advocates. The Biden-Harris DOJ targeted traditional Catholics.
Why, though? Why were they arresting those people? Were those people involved in criminality? Or were they just random?
Spending over $35 million to try to bring down their political opponent. To further this effort, they sought the phone records of over a dozen Republican members of Congress. Even the Democrats said this was wrong.
When they say this, by the way, it's because those Republican members of Congress were part and parcel to the Trump administration, the first 1.0, their attempts to overthrow the election. And so when you are involved in a crime and you are in communications with people who are involved in that crime, your records of communications will probably be subpoenaed. But they make it sound like the Biden administration was looking at phone records of Republicans just because they were political opponents and not because they were part of a criminal conspiracy.
They got bank records for scores of White House officials. They even paid at least one confidential human source $20,000 for information on President Trump. And of course, while doing all this, they couldn't tell us who planted the pipe bombs, who leaked the Dobbs opinion, and who put cocaine in the White House. But thank goodness the American people saw through it all. Americans were tired of being targeted for their beliefs, tired of the lawfare, tired of the rampant crime throughout this country, and that's why they overwhelmingly elected President Trump. And what a difference a year makes. What a difference a year makes. Under Attorney General,
I know, right? But not in the way that he's thinking.
The rule of law, going after the bad guys and keeping Americans safe. The Trump Justice Department has restored the rule of law. Murders are down nationwide by 20%. In D.C., violent crime is down by 28%. The federal surge in D.C. resulted in 8,000 arrests, the seizure of 800 illegal guns, and the recovery of 16 missing kids. Trump Justice Department apprehended a suspect in the pipe bomb investigation, and they've arrested 6 of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives in just 1 year. Of course, they arrested narco-terrorist Nicolas Maduro, and they seized a record number of drugs flowing into this country.
It's also worth noting that the Trump administration pardoned drug traffickers. There is, some people have alleged, and I think there's a lot of credibility to it, a pay-for-play scheme in the Trump administration where they're accepting crypto payments. Remember earlier in the hearing where we were talking about how Pam Bondi's Justice Department kind of dissolved the crypto fraud division. So they're paying cryptocurrency to members of the Trump administration, and then those same people who paid that crypto then get a pardon. Kind of seems like it's connected, no?
Trump Justice Department put an end to targeting Americans for their beliefs. Attorney General Bondi rescinded
You guys believe that?
Anti-parent memorandum. Department of Justice ended the practices of using the FACE Act to target pro-life Americans. They've refused to tolerate attacks on places of worship and investigations of traditional Catholics that we saw in the previous administration. On her first day, Attorney General Bondi disbanded the Foreign Influence Task Force that was pressuring social media.
And there's a lot of things he's saying here. Just keep in mind, I'm not going to like
under Attorney General Bondi, along with Director
interrogate every single thing because we're going to be here all day. I want to focus on Pam Bondi's hearing.
Turned over hundreds of pages of documents to Congress, and that's why we know, for example, that Mr. Smith paid at least $20,000 to some confidential human
And it's an important thing to keep in mind, by the way, sometimes when you're in like debate or engaging rhetoric, is you have to prioritize. You can't be there getting distracted by every little piece of bait that's thrown out there.
The Constitution. The Trump Justice Department has changed DOJ policy to require prosecutors to tell judges if NDOs relate to members of the separate and equal branch of government, the Congress. And to top it all off, the Trump Justice Department opened an investigation into the conspiracy behind the Russia collusion hoax.
Also, you're going to find out later on in this hearing, I think, if one of the clips covers it, I saw it. The Trump administration right now is also looking at the phone records of Democrats in Congress. And so when they say here that, oh, you guys were subpoenaing phone records of Republicans, and they act like that's the worst thing in the world or whatever it may be, they're not really being forthright because they're doing the same thing. Now, I don't really know the context of why they're doing that. That's worth looking into. The question I would have is, the reason that Republicans' phone records were investigated was because they were communicating with people involved in actual crimes. Do they, when they're investigating Democrat officials' phone records, are they investigating because it's part of a crime? Is there a crime that they can cite? Or are they just doing it because they're trying to intimidate their opposition?
Justice Department has put common sense ahead of politics. They sued to keep boys out of girls' sports. They secured deals with universities to stop race-based.
Common sense is another way of saying my feelings. It's when you don't actually have like a meritorious argument for what you're doing. You just say, "Oh, it's common sense."
We'll head that division last week. I think he's going to do a great job. There's a lot of work to be done in that area, but I want to thank the Attorney General for her great work in the first year on the job, and I want to thank you for being here. With that, I would yield to the ranking member for an opening statement.
Awesome. So now, okay, so he is the committee chair. Again, Republicans control Congress right now because they have a majority. So now the next person that talks is Jamie Raskin. Jamie Raskin has the title of ranking member. He's not the chairman of the committee, but he's like the leader for the Democrats for the minority party of that committee. That's his role.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman, and welcome Attorney General Bondi. You've got the best lawyer's job in America.
And Jamie Raskin, prior to serving, I think he was like a constitutional scholar, something along those lines.
You've got to listen to the victims, like the women seated behind you today. Those are just some of the hundreds of survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's global sex trafficking ring who are demanding that the truth be told and are demanding accountability for the abusers who trafficked and raped them. You still haven't met with these survivors. So with their permission, let me introduce to you the survivors and late survivors' family members who are present today. There's Teresa Helm, there's Jess Michaels, Laura Bloom McGee, Denny Bensky, Liz Stein, Marina Lacerda, Sky and Amanda Roberts, who are the family of the late Virginia Giuffre, Charlene Richard, and Lisa Phillips. Now, you're not showing a lot of interest in the victims, Madam Attorney General. Whether it's Epstein's human trafficking ring or the homicidal governmental violence against citizens in Minneapolis, as Attorney General, you're siding with the perpetrators and you're ignoring the victims. That will be your legacy unless you act quickly to change course. You're running a massive Epstein cover-up right out of the Department of Justice. You've been ordered by subpoena and by Congress to turn over 6 million documents, photographs, and videos.
It's really quite incredible when you think about it. This might be the largest government cover-up in U.S. history. I don't know. I'm not a historian. Maybe world history? Maybe in the modern era? Maybe. I don't know. But it's up there, right? It's crazy the times that we live in, and that I don't know, that this is just happening and we're just like whatever about it, I guess.
In Epstein files, but you've turned over only 3 million. You say you're not turning over the other 3 million because they're somehow duplicative, but we know that there are actual memos of victim statements in there, and you also took down the Department of Justice's prosecution memo from 2019. So it's clearly not all duplicative, but even if it were, why not release it? Just release all the duplicative stuff. In the half you did produce, you redacted the names of abusers, enablers, accomplices, and co-conspirators, apparently to spare them embarrassment and disgrace, which is the exact opposite of what the law ordered you to do.
Yeah.
Even worse.
Yeah, in a previous stream, I've read the actual law. The law specifically says that they're not allowed to do that. They cannot redact names simply because of names of people who are potential suspects or involved in crimes, only for like political purpose or because it might embarrass or tarnish that person's. They're not allowed to do that explicitly in the law.
You shockingly failed to redact
But
many of
they're
the
doing it
victims,
anyways.
which is what you were ordered to do by Congress. Some of the victims had come forward publicly, but many had not. Many had kept their torment private, even from family and friends. But you published their names, their identities, their images on thousands of pages for the world to see. So you ignored the law, and even with over 100,000 employees at your disposal, you acted with some mixture of staggering incompetence, cold indifference, and jaded cruelty towards more than 1,000 victims raped, abused, and trafficked. This performance screams cover-up. Convicted sex trafficker and groomer Ghislaine Maxwell opened the gates of hell to Virginia Giuffre and hundreds of other victims, as Virginia recorded in her remarkable book, Nobody's Girl. But when Maxwell was subpoenaed to come testify before Congress, you and Todd Blanche quickly moved her from a higher security prison to a minimum security camp in Texas, where she's enjoyed 5-star treatment, including catered meals, private gym time, and access to a therapy puppy. All because Todd Blanche, who's utterly failed to investigate the monstrous crimes of Epstein and Maxwell's
It is worth saying, I think there was like an email where Jeffrey Epstein tells Ghislaine Maxwell, I might be getting the details a little bit wrong, where he tells her, or somebody says, somebody somewhere in some of the documents or something says, Maxwell might be the one who can flip on Trump or bury Trump or something along those lines, right? And then the Trump administration comes in, Ghislaine Maxwell, conviction was secured against her, and then he has her transferred to a lower security, like boutique prison, basically. Isn't that kind of interesting? Isn't that kind of weird?
Conspirator spent 9 hours with Maxwell and satisfied himself that she would have nothing untoward to say about Donald Trump.
And now
Your
Maxwell
real interest in the matter
is trying to get clemency from the Trump administration.
Victims and coddling perpetrators is what you do best. When the FBI opened a criminal investigation.
And it seems like, we'll address these pictures in a minute. It seems like that clemency is probably going to be a quid pro quo for absolving Trump of wrongdoing. These images are images, I think this is the Renee Good shooting.
Investigation into the brutal killing in Minneapolis of Renee Good, a poet and 37-year-old mother of 3, by Trump's masked paramilitary ICE agents. You shut it down.
By the way, I just want to say real quick, is like not really the main purpose of this stream, but the shooting, whether or not they want to make an argument of whether or not the first shot was justified, because she was moving forward at like 0.15 miles per hour and the officer's life was in danger, right? Whatever. Okay. The last 2 shots that we don't talk about enough, when he was clearly from the side of the vehicle, at this point, the vehicle has any possibility of running into him. He's totally on the side of the vehicle. 2 more shots through the driver's window. Why? If you're going to make the argument that he shot her because he was just trying to defend his life, why would you need to put 2 more shots through the driver's side window when you've already cleared the side of the vehicle?
You claim you're investigating the cold-blooded murder.
Same thing with Alex Preddy. Alex Preddy, if you want to make the argument, I don't agree with these arguments, by the way, that, the first shot was needed because they were afraid of their lives or whatever it may be. What we don't talk about enough is if you watch the video, after that initial shot and the rest of the officers back up, that officer who shot him steps back completely far away from him, dumps the rest of his magazine into him. The dude's already been shot. He's lying lifeless on the floor. And that officer just unloads the rest of his magazine into him. Why? If it's just self-defense, why would you do that? But we don't talk about that.
Alex Preddy, an ICU nurse at the VA. But how can we trust the administration when the president and Kristi Noem called Preddy a domestic terrorist and Stephen Miller called him a would-be assassin? Not only do you refuse to share evidence with the state and local investigators and prosecutors in Minnesota, you have blocked their access to the crime scene and the evidence. How are you seeking
Why would
justice
you do
for
that too?
Marimar Martinez?
If you think everything is above board, why would you block the state law enforcement from the crime scene, from the evidence? Because you don't want somebody else to see what you're doing. You don't want other people to have oversight over whether or not you're conducting yourself
A
properly.
Montessori school teacher in Chicago who was shot 5 times by a Border Patrol agent.
By the way, this is stuff we don't talk about. There are other people who have been shot and killed by ICE that we like. They just don't make the news. And there have been multiple people in ICE detainment facilities, I think like over a dozen or so, who have also been, they've died in ICE custody, and ICE will not allow like medical examiners to see why. So we don't know why they're dying in there. We can use our imagination, but isn't that kind of weird, right?
Who bragged about it on text. Or the family of Keith Porter, a father of 2 shot and killed by an off-duty ICE agent in LA. Or the family of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, shot and killed in Illinois minutes after he dropped his kids off at school. There's no sign of any movement at the Department of Justice. You even launched
a big old smile on Jim Jordan's face here.
Widow. How sick is that? But it's even worse. You've turned the People's Department
And
of Justice
is Jerry
into
Nadler over here? Is he falling asleep?
Trump orders up prosecutions like pizza, and you deliver every time. He tells you to go after James Comey, Letitia James,
Some of these people need to
and
retire.
Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve Board, and members of Congress like Adam Schiff, Mark Kelly, Alyssa Slotkin, Chrissy Houlihan, Jason Crow, Chris DeLuzio, and Maggie Goodlander, to name a few, and you snap to it. You replace real prosecutors with counterfeit stooges who robotically do the president's bidding. Nothing in American history comes close to this complete corruption of the justice function and contamination of federal law enforcement. And the good news is many serious lawyers at DOJ, including some of your own original appointees, have refused your lawless orders. Danielle Sassoon, your original pick for acting U.S. Attorney Manhattan, resigned rather than follow your corrupt order to quash an indictment against Mayor Eric Adams as a political favor from Donald Trump. A Federalist Society
Source on what?
member who clerked for Justice
See in the
Scalia,
chat here,
US
someone's
Attorney
asked for a source on
refused
something.
to participate in this blatantly corrupt scheme. Her top assistant, Hagan Scotton, an Iraqi war vet and 2-time Bronze Star recipient who clerked for Chief Justice Roberts, and then Judge Kavanaugh, promptly resigned too, writing to your office, quote, "I expect you will eventually find someone who is enough of a fool or enough of a coward to file your motion, but it was never going to be me. You and the president nominated Eric Siebert, a 15-year career prosecutor, to be your U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. But after 5 months of investigating Letitia James and James Comey, he found no evidence to justify criminal charges. So you forced him out. You replaced him with Lindsay Halligan, Trump's personal lawyer from the Mar-a-Lago documents case, who had 0 prosecutorial experience and no qualifications. And then you were humiliated when a federal judge...
Why would you choose someone like that, right? Because they're going to do what you want them to do, not because they're going to do what the law demands.
Have repeatedly rejected your vendettas and baseless indictments brought by the hacks left at DOJ now, with 2 different grand juries in Virginia voting down indictments against Letitia James in a single week. And just yesterday, another grand jury...
Yeah, think about that, by the way. So they try to get grand juries to indict Letitia James, who Letitia James was... I forget if was she Attorney General in New York, whatever it may be, a prosecutor in New York. Letitia James in New York was filing charges against Trump because of alleged crimes that they were involved in. I have to say alleged because it was never, or at least as far as I understand. They ran so many attack ads against her. They made a whole media thing about how she's bad or whatever. The Trump administration comes in. They tried to file charges against her. They couldn't get a judge to go after her. They had 2 grand juries. So I mean, like a jury of people who were supposed to look at evidence and see, okay, based on this evidence, do you think that it warrants like an indictment? 2 grand juries. I don't really know for sure, but I feel like usually it's 1. And then whatever that 1 decides, you kind of go with that. But they weren't happy with the result. So then they shot for a new grand jury. 2 of them said no. And then I think they found somebody eventually, or some grand jury or whatever, to indict her, and that fell through. So when you have like that pattern of behavior, it doesn't seem like you're actually trying to apply the law faithfully. It seems like you are just trying to attack your political opposition.
Shut down your vendetta factory by rejecting indictments against the 6 members of Congress who had spoken out to remind all service members that they have a duty to refuse illegal orders. You tried to get a grand jury to indict 6 members of Congress who are veterans of our armed forces on charges of seditious conspiracy simply for exercising their First Amendment rights. I hope you will heed the wisdom and the constitutional patriotism of those grand jurors and not try it again by doubling down on that humiliation. As your best lawyers are sacked for having participated in the January 6th case or just flee for the exits now, your new lawyers keep lying in court. In dozens of cases, they've been excoriated for lying to federal judges. Chief Judge Boasberg, right here in D.C., suggested your Department of Justice perpetrated a fraud on the court. Other judges found your statements to be, quote, inexplicably misleading, patently incredible, totally inconsistent, and so disingenuous that the court is left with little confidence that the government can be trusted to tell the truth about anything. Now, as ranking member, I asked the chairman to add a few extra rounds of questions today because we each have 5 hours of questions, not 5 minutes. But we're stuck with 5 minutes. That's clearly insufficient to give voice to America's victims and survivors and to demand answers about all the corruption and cover-ups that we see at DOJ right now. We've got just one round, so we ask you politely but firmly, Madam Attorney General, please do not waste 1 second of our precious time by evading questions.
They never do. They always do. So they always try to filibuster.
The Senate,
you already know it's going to happen.
A binder of smears to attack members personally for doing the people's work of oversight. Please set the burn book aside.
How insecure and pathetic, by the way, to go to a hearing like this and rather than be able to answer the questions or defend your record or position, you just bring a book with you of like, oh, here's all the playground insults that my staff had to come up with for me to deflect and try to like, oh, you called me a poopy head. Well, I'm going to call you a peepee head. Like, stupid.
And answer our questions. And when you hear us reclaim our time, that means it's time for you to stop speaking. We only have 5 minutes. So when we reclaim our time, that means you stop.
And as we already know from the other clips we've seen, obviously she doesn't abide by that.
The quality of justice in America depends on the character of our government. Please do your job and bring the Department of Justice back from the brink. The survivors seated behind you and the American people watching everywhere deserve a Department of Justice worthy of its name. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Objection. United States.
Okay. Now, Pam Bondi is going to have her opening statement. Let's guess here. What is she going to talk about? Is she going to address any of the criticisms? Probably not. But you know what? That's probably pretty normal, regardless of party. So we won't give her too many dings on that. But I bet you what she's going to do is talk about, look at all these illegal immigrants. Look at all these illegal immigrants committing crime. Aren't you guys scared? Aren't you happy that we're in charge? Don't look over here. Don't look at all this stuff that we're doing that's corrupt. Don't look at all this stuff that we're doing that is illegal. Why don't you just focus on this scary illegal immigrant instead?
Please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety.
That's my guess.
Accordingly, we ask that you
Let's see how it goes.
Your testimony. Madam Attorney General, you may begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Raskin, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for hosting me here today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer your questions, highlight the work of our department, and discuss the most important topic of all, keeping the American people safe. A little over a year ago, I was sworn into office as 87th Attorney General of the United States. I came into office with the goal of refocusing the Department of Justice on its core mission after years of bloated bureaucracy and political weaponization. The Department of Justice's core mission is to fight violent crime, protect the American people, and defend the rule of law above all else. While our work is never done, we have made tremendous progress to make America safe again. In 2025, we saw the lowest murder rate in 125 years. That's nothing short of historic.
It is worth mentioning, crime rates have been steadily declining since the 90s. When they talk about like, oh, the lowest crime rate in whatever, right? It's like, okay, if it's continually declining, then every year is going to be the lowest year because that's just that trend kind of keeping in pace. Now, we saw an increase in crime globally. We saw it in the United States. We saw it in other countries during the COVID pandemic. But now what you're saying is you're seeing it come back down to where that trend was initially going. And so, I mean, fair is fair. It probably is decreasing, but that's kind of just what the trend has been, regardless of administration, regardless of Democrat or Republican. It's been declining steadily since the 90s.
If you compare 25 to 24, here's what you'll find. The murder rate is down 21%, robbery down 23%, carjacking down 43%, gun assault down 22%, ag assault, burglary could go.
We got Jordan in chat. I don't know if this is Jim Jordan on his alt account, but he says, how do you sleep at night after basing your entire opinion on things where you have to make up random bull every minute? Hope you get the help you need, my man. Lol, this didn't come through. Wonder what? Okay. Well, I mean, I asked you, like, what exactly did you want to source on? And you didn't answer. So I think you and I both know that I actually don't make up bullshit. I think you know that I will source everything that I say. And, you know, if you don't believe me, then go ahead and tell me. Tell me, what did I lie about? What did I make up? I don't think you have anything. I think all you have is that you're mad. You're big mad.
On and on. Crime is
maybe you could work for the Pam Bondi internal justice system.
An important yet straightforward story. President Trump has given us the resources, the support, and the leadership to protect the American people. President Trump's policies have saved lives. I cannot think of a policy outcome more important than protecting the lives of American citizens. Can you? This trend has been especially clear in Washington, D.C. and in Memphis. These are two iconic American cities that spent years in the grip of horrific violent crime. The Department of Justice surged law enforcement resources, and the results came quickly. Crime plummeted in both cities.
I haven't looked into this claim. I've seen them repeat this claim a lot. I don't know if it's true or not. It might be. I really don't know. But it's my understanding that the crime was already declining in all these places. So it's that thing where like you come in, the trend is already going down, and then you take credit for the trend going down. I think it's okay to take credit for we're maintaining that trend. But I think when you act like hyperbolically, like you guys are the reason you're responsible, I don't really think so.
And I want to make one point loud.
It's kind of the same thing where multiple administrations will do this. Will take credit for like the stock market going up. Well, generally speaking, the stock market always goes up. It has like an annual growth rate around like what, 7 to 10%, which is why it's a good investment. By the way, I don't give investment advice. I would never do that. But yeah, if you want to beat the rate of inflation of 2%, stock market generally grows about 7 to 10%. And it doesn't really have anything to do with the president necessarily. It's just kind of how things have generally trended.
We achieved those results by working with Democratic mayors. Public safety does not have a party registration. When your constituents call 911...
Now, like most of the things she's saying so far, these are like neutrally, like, okay, these are fine things to say. There's nothing wrong with this. It's just going to come down to rhetoric versus like, what has her administration actually been up to?
Some have not. Meanwhile, a few elected officials have declared that they are, quote, at war with the federal government and encouraged widespread obstruction of law enforcement. This has resulted in avoidable clashes on the streets, as you've all seen. We've seen rioters storming a Christian church. Citizens and law enforcement officers have both been endangered by reckless rhetoric. We have made dozens of...
Okay, so we got a response from Jordan here in chat. He says the crime rate during COVID, let's see, crime rate globally. By the way, I didn't say that crime was the highest during COVID. I just said that there was like an uptick during COVID. Crime rate globally. Over time, you'd expect it to be over time, but let's look at this here. Okay, so let's just look at this, by the way, for a second here, because people don't appreciate this. When I say that crime has been declining over time, like, look at how fucking much crime has declined over time. But people will watch the news, and the reason we have an impression that crime is so high all the time, number one, because you have like politicians who are constantly fear-mongering. Oh my God, everyone's out to get you. Oh my God, there's a stabbing yesterday. Oh my God, like, we have less crime as a rate, but what do we have more of now? Cell phones with cameras in our hands. What do we have more of now? Documentary evidence. What do we have more of now? Mass communication platforms. So our impression of there being more crime is because we see it more, not because there's actually more of it. So crime has been declining over time. This is generally true in most like liberal Western countries. And if we want to zoom in on this graph a little bit, get an idea of what was crime during COVID. And hey, maybe Jordan was right about something. I'll give you credit, Jordan. If you're right, you're right. But let's look at this, okay? Let's see here. Do we have a chart? This is going to be 2019. This stops too early. 2017, 2021. Okay. Well, you don't have, even if you have an uptick, it almost looks like you do have an uptick here. Rate of violent crime. Of course, I want to know crime maybe more generally, but you do have an uptick right there. That probably corresponds with the COVID era. You have like 2019 is somewhere over here. 2019, 2020. So this would be an uptick, but it's small. But granted, it is an uptick, right? And then, of course, you're going to slide back down to the mean as things kind of go back to normal. So, but let's look at this. I want a more specific answer to this question. Did the crime rate go up or down during COVID? I would imagine it would go up, and the reason I would imagine it would go up, well, there's two factors here. Number one is you have people that are more indoors, likely, potentially. If they're more indoors, you expect crime to go down. But if people are losing their jobs, if the economy is experiencing issues and whatnot, then you expect crime to go up as a result of that. But let's see here. During 2019, or the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. crime trends were mixed. Violent crime, particularly homicide, saw a significant increase, while many property crimes decreased due to lockdowns and fewer people being away from home. Okay, interesting. By 2024 and 2025, crime rates had begun to fall from these pandemic peaks, with violent crime in many major cities dropping below pre-pandemic levels. So by 2024 and 2025, so the effects of the Trump administration don't really factor in here. But, you know, of course, they're going to take credit for it. Continued high rates, homicide and aggravated assault. All right, well, that's basically, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you get the idea.
Of arrest in and around Minneapolis so far, and many of them could have been avoided by simple compliance with federal law. Of course, our efforts reach beyond our urban centers. We are striking crucial blows against
beyond the urban centers into the forest where you got brigands.
Terrorist organizations such as MS-13, TDA, the Sinaloa Cartel, and Antifa.
And the Robin Hood
I think you've seen
faction.
The news this morning. The news is reporting
The Robin Hood Graders.
Cartel drones are being shot down by our military. That's what we all should care about right now. Protecting America.
Yeah, don't look at what my administration's doing. Don't look at them killing U.S. citizens. Don't look at the corruption. Don't look at us, you know, dissolving the cryptocurrency fraud division. Don't look at us dissolving the internal division that's supposed to keep the agency from being weaponized. Just pay attention to the scary illegals and the drug cartels over there.
As we seek to dismantle these drug trafficking networks that poison Americans, in 2025, our DEA agents seized more than 47 million fentanyl pills and more than 9,800
fentanyl. Oh my God.
kilos of fentanyl.
Right. We had the crack epidemic. It wasn't a big deal because those were black people. But oh my God, fentanyl's the biggest thing in the world now. Now we all have to care about it.
That represents 369 million potentially deadly doses that can kill Americans. Meanwhile, our attorneys are fighting for President
Be afraid. Be afraid of the fentanyl. Be afraid of the immigrants. Be afraid of the cartels.
27 times. We've fought through a nonstop flood of bad faith temporary restraining orders from liberal activist judges across this country. America has never
Who are these liberal activist judges? I think when they say liberal activist judges, I think they just mean judges who ruled against them.
It is not only an unlawful attack on the executive branch's authority,
That's just me,
but
though.
a serious attack on the democratic process. In spite of this unprecedented judicial activism, we've attained 24 favorable rulings at the U.S. Supreme Court. Their emergency documents.
Oh, you obtained favorable rulings at the Supreme Court, the one that you guys stacked with conservative justices. That's quite an accomplishment. That's crazy. That's like me getting a pat on the back from my own parents.
And even more to come. We've done so while ending the weaponization of the prior administration by dropping FACE Act prosecutions, exposing the Arctic frost scandal via congressional disclosure, thank you, Chairman, and restoring one tier of justice in this country. To address the Epstein files, more than 500 attorneys and reviewers spent thousands of hours painstakingly reviewing millions of pages to comply with Congress's law. We've released more than 3 million.
Here's what I want to know. They said before they were pressured to release the Epstein file. By the way, if anyone tells you that Donald Trump signed the Epstein Files Act or whatever, and try to use that as an excuse to say like, oh, see, Donald Trump, he wants to go after, you know, Epstein. He's not trying to cover it up. Keep in mind, the Epstein Files Transparency Act was passed with like an overwhelming majority of Congress, what you would call a veto-proof majority of Congress. The way our system works is you can pass a law with a simple majority, you know, 51%, whatever that number is. But the president can veto it. If he vetoes that law, it goes back to Congress. Congress can pass it again. And if they pass it, I think it's with 2/3 of the vote, that's veto-proof. The president cannot veto it at that point. Epstein Files Transparency Act, because it had so much public pressure, both from Democrats and Republican voters on the representatives, passed with a veto-proof majority. Donald Trump had no choice but to sign it. But here's the question I have is, they claimed before that act was signed by Congress that they didn't have anything to show. You know, you had Cash Patel, you had Don Bongino go on like these right-wing podcasters shows to be like, oh, you guys, we looked into it. We swear to God, you know, we're good guys. We would never lie to you. It's the deep state that lied to you, the liberals. There just wasn't anything there. There's nothing to charge, you know? So they said that. They said, oh, there's nothing there. We've looked at everything. We can't charge anyone. There's no actual crimes that we could pursue. The Epstein Files Transparency Act goes into effect. And now they need all this extra time. Oh, we can't comply with the 30-day timeline to release files because we got to go through them all now. Well, motherfucker, you told me that you guys went through the files and you didn't see any cases of criminality. Now you're telling me that, like, basically you didn't go through the files and now you need to hire all these people to go through the files? Kind of seems to me like you're just kind of saying stuff.
Billion pages, including 180,000 images, all to the public, while doing our very best in the time frame allotted by the legislation to protect victims. And if you brought us a victim's name that was inadvertently released, we immediately redacted it. All members of Congress, as you know, are invited to visit DOJ to see for yourselves. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the Epstein survivors who are here today. I'm a career prosecutor, and despite what the ranking member said, I have spent my entire career fighting for victims, and I will continue to do so. I am deeply sorry for what any victim has been through, especially as a result of that monster.
Break out the violin music.
To share with law enforcement about anyone who has hurt you or abused you, the FBI is waiting to hear from you.
As we've seen earlier, if you're coming in late, we watched some other clips that are later on in the hearing. There are various victims who the DOJ, under her authority, did not reach out to, who they themselves try to reach out to the DOJ, and the DOJ ignored them. So she could say, like, words that sound nice and everything. When you actually look at the actions, she's, like, blatantly lying.
I want you to know that any accusations of criminal wrongdoing will be taken seriously.
I want you to know that any accusation
the Department of Justice is
will be
committed
investigated
to holding
to the
criminals
fullest.
accountable to the fullest extent of the law. In 2025,
I care
FBI
so
arrested
much
over
about the victims.
1,700 child predators, a 10% increase from 2024. We also located 2,700 victims of child exploitation and shut down 3.8 million dark web pedophile accounts. 3.8 million.
It's a lot of Republicans.
So please, if you have information to share that needs to be investigated, contact the FBI. Today, I look forward to discussing further our
Fun fact, by the way, Republicans are actually overrepresented compared to Democrats, conservative versus liberal, whatever, for being found guilty or convicted of child molestation. Fun fact.
shared obligation to protect the American people, uphold the rule of law, and keep this nation safe. Thank you.
The gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Attorney General Bondi, right here. We are joined in this room by some of the thousands of survivors from Jeffrey Epstein's horrific sex trafficking ring. They have shown such incredible courage in speaking out, in demanding accountability to bring the predators and pedophiles to justice. The Epstein Files Transparency Act required your Department of Justice to disclose the perpetrators connected with Epstein's criminal activities and to redact the information of survivors to protect their identities. Let me show you what actually happened. First, in violation of the law, your department has shown a pattern of redacting the names of powerful predators.
Okay, so I don't want to be here all day, so we're probably going to skip past this. We've already seen earlier in the, well, later in the hearing, earlier in my stream, that there are clips where other members brought this up, that they redacted the names of suspects, which the law says you can't do, and they didn't redact the name of victims, which the law says you're required to do. So she's just kind of saying the same thing there.
The chairman and CEO of a company that had financial ties to President Trump's life.
Yeah, let's see what this is
about.
about.
The chairman and CEO of email reads, quote, example of an email of redacting the names of powerful predators. Here behind me is one example of an email from Epstein to a man whose name was redacted. The email
I love the
reads,
torture
quote,
video. I think that we know who this person is now. I think he resigned. I think he's from another country. Business leader resigns over Epstein files. Yeah, Dubai. So head of Dubai-based ports giant quips after Epstein file link reveals. I think this is that person in the email. Let me just skim through this here and make sure. Let me do a Control F. Oh yeah. Among the redacted flagged by Massey on 9 February was a document appearing to show an email from Epstein in 29 referring to a torture video. The recipient replied that they would be traveling between China and US. The context is not known. One of the most trusted friends. The men discuss launch Islamic digital currency. All this crypto scamming going on. Russia. Mendelsohn told be nice to Sultan. Other introduction. Okay. So I think it's that same guy. Take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. I don't have time to dig into every little thing going on here, but
Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video. Only after members of Congress demanded that we see the unredacted files did the world learn the name of this individual, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayman.
Oh, I should have just let her continue. My bad.
That had financial ties to President Trump's business and personal ties to Trump's advisors.
What? He would never.
The survivors were not similarly protected, also in violation of the law. Here is another email titled Epstein Victim List. We have blurred the names of the survivors for their protection.
What the fuck? So someone bothered to redact one of them, and they just left the rest of them.
Justice initially released this list of 32 survivors' names with only one name redacted. Along with
who's the one that was
files,
redacted, I
it disclosed
wonder?
not only the names, the emails, and the addresses
I
of
wonder
survivors,
why
but
that
also
one is redacted,
nude
not the
photographs,
others.
and even the identities of Jane Does, who had been protected for decades until your department released their names. Survivors are now telling us that their families are finding out for the first time that they were trafficked by Epstein.
Unfortunately, a lot of the damage that's been done by this administration is like, it's permanent. I hate to say it, but it is. And this is why elections matter. This is why where you get your news from matters. This is why when you grow up and you're indoctrinated into a belief system and everybody else around you makes it seem like, oh, you can't question, you can't be the other side because they're bad and they're, you know, call them every slur in the book. This is why this matters. This damage is probably permanent. The victims, the damage to their lives, probably permanent. The corruption to our system of government now at this point, I don't know if I'd say it's permanent damage, but it'll take a long time to fix it. The damage to our public discourse is going to be damaged for a long time.
In their words, quote, "This release does not provide closure. It feels like a deliberate attempt to intimidate survivors, punish those who came forward, and reinforce the same culture of secrecy that allowed Epstein's crimes to continue for decades." To the survivors in the room.
Our good friend Jordan in chat asked me for a source on conservatives or Republicans. I forget what the wording was for these studies. Are more guilty or guilty at a higher rate of child sex crimes than Democrats, liberals, whatever it may be. Let's just look this up real fast. Nobody knows about this. The media doesn't talk about this because the media is liberally biased, right? So let's look this up real fast. Child sex crime by party. And by the way, Jordan, like, to help you out a bit, welcome to the age of information. Clearly you have an internet connection. You can always just Google this if you want to. Or if you don't trust Google, DuckDuckGo it or whatever other option you got there, okay? By political alignment. Of these categories by gender. The public ways on a nation's child welfare system. I'm not looking for that either. Total offenders by political affiliation. Sex crimes involving children by political party. Look at this. 67%. That's 2/3. Democratic is only 13.5%. That's pretty wild, right? You can just start going through a bunch of statistics. You're going to find a lot of interesting stuff after a while. And the trends are all going to kind of point in very similar directions. You're going to find over time. I'm surprised the libertarians aren't at a higher rate here. Libertarians are like, they love their whole age of consent arguments. Then again, libertarians are probably a very smaller portion of the population, but Democrats and Republicans should be roughly equal in terms of the amount there are. So for there to be this disparity, that's not explained simply by differences in the like the amount of them that are in society, and then unknown. Okay, all right, moving on.
If you are willing, please stand. And if you
Please stand,
willing,
guys.
Please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice.
Okay. All right, so we've seen this already, basically.
For the record, that every
Let's move
single
on.
survivor has raised their hand.
They need to coordinate their talking points a little bit more. They've been getting better at that, I will say. I've been paying attention to politics for way too long, but they are getting better at that. But like, you only have so much time. You only have like, everybody's trying to get their little clips in or whatever. I get it, but like, each member from the party should probably be focusing on a different topic that they want to bring up and grill on.
What I would
Response to
like
your
you
question.
to answer, which is, will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members who ask the questions, the witness get to answer in the way they want to
Anybody
answer.
know what that reference is from?
That's not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't
It is
like the
my
answer.
time.
So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't
a
she ask
question.
Merrick Garland this?
I am
Twice,
reclaiming
when
my
he sat in
time, and
chair.
when I
will
reclaim my
continue to
time,
answer.
it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady's
I'm
reclaimed
not
her
going to
time.
get in the gutter for her
Yeah,
theatrics.
yeah. Well,
Time belongs
what
to the
about
gentlelady.
Merrick
The gentlelady has
Garland,
15
though?
seconds.
Thank you. You're not going to answer this question, so let me just
Chairman,
say
I'll
this.
direct it to
What
you.
a massive
No, I'm
cover-up.
answering a
Mr.
question.
Chairman, will you restore her time? The witness is
I'm not
interrupting.
going to get in the gutter with this woman.
Stop the
She's
time
doing
and
theatrics.
let me have my time.
The gentlelady from Washington controls the time. The gentlelady has
She's
17
so
seconds.
mad.
You can proceed with your final
Thank you.
17 seconds.
What a massive cover-up this has been and continues to be. Donald Trump made the release of the Epstein files the center of his political campaign because he thought it would benefit him. Then you got into office, Attorney General,
Because his dumbass supporters all thought that the Republican Party was the party of the average man and weren't themselves the deep state the entire time in bed with corporate interests and all these like pedophile rings and everything.
Turn around to the survivors who are standing.
It's so I should just go into like Republican right wing grifting because it's so easy. All you have to do is just say stuff. You just say, "I'm against the pedophiles. I'm against the corruption. I'm against the deep state," and they just believe you. They just believe. It's so crazy.
Standing right behind you, and on a human level,
Chairman,
Chair now
apologizing
recognizes the
for what you have done.
time is the
I
gentlelady
yield
expired.
back.
The gentlelady, you have no time to yield back.
Yeah,
We appreciate that. We appreciate the thought. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
All right, who's this?
Chairman, I want to begin by
Nadler.
acknowledging the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse who are in the room with us today.
Nadler finally woke up from his 1,000-year slumber.
I want to thank all of you for your bravery in speaking out. I want to say that you and the other survivors of these heinous crimes deserve better from this Department of Justice.
Oh my God.
In particular, it is shocking.
This rhetoric, this rhetorical style is so
The
antiquated.
names of their abusers. I don't know whether this was done out of incompetence or whether it was deliberate and malicious, but either way, it is completely unacceptable.
It's for a bygone era.
More troubling, the DOJ has
We need you to get to the point. We need you to like
Instead, it has engaged in a
have a
relentless pursuit of
punchy
Donald
point that
Trump's
you're making.
perceived enemies. I want to focus on just one example. The Attorney General of my home state of New York, Tish James. This DOJ has been hell-bent on securing an indictment against Ms. James for something, anything, simply because she held Donald Trump's companies accountable for years of financial fraud. And indeed,
It's also worth noting, by the way, because sometimes people will say, like, prior to Donald Trump actually getting some criminal indictments and stuff like that, people used to say, like, you know, if he's so bad, why has he never been guilty of crimes or anything? What you have to know, though, is that multiple of his businesses have been actually charged with various crimes over the years, different kinds of fraud. I think his charity got shut down because they were defrauding veterans that they were supposed to donate charity to. Like, just consider how fucking crazy that is. Consider how, like, immoral that is. And that it's so unfortunate because they pretend that, like, they're the party of supporting veterans. By the way, Jordan, this is another one I have a great, source for if you don't believe it or anything. Democratic politicians over, I don't know, in the modern era have been better for veterans policy than the Republicans have. They're better at funding healthcare for veterans. Republicans will do things like block healthcare for veterans that were involved in like the tar pits that like permanently damaged those veterans and whatnot. Democratic politicians are better for veterans. Republican politicians, they just love to just say, oh, we're all about veterans. They like to virtue signal about it. Donald Trump, leader of the Republican Party, defrauded veterans with his charity. So, like, getting back to my point here, Donald Trump, his businesses have been involved in a variety of different kinds of crime over the years, as well as many of his associates being found of various crimes over the years. What he does is, his strategy is, he keeps a layer of separation between himself and the crime. When you own a business, an LLC, limited liability, that limited liability part means that you have limited insulation from legal consequence. The legal consequences are tied to the business itself as an entity rather than you personally. This isn't like, there are still going to be areas it's limited, right? But his businesses are guilty of it. So he's able to say, well, technically I'm not guilty of it, right? But it's your businesses. And there's a pattern of multiple of your businesses doing this. You have a lot of your associates who are found guilty of various crimes over the years. That is you, kind of like a mafioso boss, letting your grunts, letting your fall men do the dirty work on your behalf. But if you look at the overall pattern, you could see like the hub of this criminality is the person in between all those different things. Anyways, moving on.
the department manufactured an investigation against her for alleged, quote, mortgage fraud. But the U.S. attorney leading the investigation, Eric Siebert, a Trump appointee, refused to bring charges against Ms. James because there was simply no evidence. Unfortunately, a prosecutor who refuses to do Trump's bidding has no place in this DOJ, so Mr. Siebert was forced out.
You'll see the same pattern here, always. They want to go after a political opposition. If they can't get an indictment from a grand jury, they just find a new grand jury. If the judge doesn't agree with them, they judge shop for a new judge. If a prosecutor won't do it because they say that there's not enough there, they'll fire that prosecutor, look for a new one, over and over again. This is when you already have a foregone conclusion, this motivated reasoning, you're working backwards from the conclusion that you want. The Democrats are bad. I hate the Democrats. We want to lock up the Democrats. Okay, we're going to work backwards from that and try to find any little thing that we can in order to justify that end. We're going to try to find any means to get to that end.
I fired him, and there was a great case he wrote to you about, Mr. Siebert. Then we moved down. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. And obviously, you followed that order. Lindsey Halligan, Trump's former...
I don't like this mentality, by the way, this argument that's been established in the public discourse, which is like, if you are running for office, you can commit crimes. If you are a major political figure, you can commit crimes, because if people try to hold you accountable for those crimes, you get to just go, well, oh, they're coming after me because, they just don't like me because of my politics. They're just, weaponizing the legal system against their political opposition. Motherfucker, if you're involved in criminality, you don't get to get a pass on that because you're popular with people. And we shouldn't establish that standard as a country that politicians, elite members of society, they get to just like commit crimes left and right, because if you try to go after them, then they're going to pretend like you're just going after them because you're unfair or whatever. We can look at part of critical thinking. Just look at the merits of the case. If you look at the merits of the case, like the Trump administration is doing, where they're going after the political opposition, but all of their cases fall through, that tells you that the pattern there is that they're not being good faith. They're not applying the law to go after people who are committing crimes, and they just so happen to be their political opposition. They're going after their political opposition, and they're trying to find anything that they can, even when they have to hyperbolize evidence or make up or whatever it may be. Now, on the flip side, all you have to do is look at the facts of the cases around Donald Trump. What are the facts actually saying? When you actually look at them, you see that when they went after Donald Trump and the people surrounding him for crimes, they did so not simply because he was a political opponent, but because it appears that he was genuinely engaging in crime, or that the people he was surrounded by were genuinely engaging in crime.
Defense lawyer who had never prosecuted a case in her life was installed to replace Mr. Siebert, and it was clear that part of her mandate was to go after Ms. James. Halligan immediately sought an indictment, which the court dismissed because Halligan was illegally put into the role. But your department was undeterred.
That's another thing, too. They improperly put her in the role to try to prosecute.
Both grand juries rejected you and refused to indict her.
2 grand juries rejected.
For a grand jury to refuse an indictment.
That's also true, too. That's worth pointing out. Grand juries almost always return indictments. And it's not just because, you can indict a ham sandwich or whatever. It's when you get to that point, it's also kind of true of the federal government, too. The federal government has a high conviction rate as well. The federal government will only use resources to pursue things where they think they can actually secure indictments or convictions. That's why they have a higher rate. So it's very uncommon for grand juries to pass on an indictment, let alone 2 grand juries to pass on that same indictment.
16, it happened in just 6 cases.
And that tells you something. That tells you about the people who are trying to push for indictments.
In 2 different courts. That must have been humiliating. And now there are reports that you were continuing to investigate her.
It would be humiliating if they had shame, but they don't have shame.
Months of investigations, multiple failed indictments is astounding. Since your own prosecutors told you that there is not enough evidence to support a conviction, it's clear that you were going after her simply because she held President Trump accountable and he wants to punish her.
Okay.
And she is just one name on a long list of Trump political enemies that DOJ is reportedly targeting.
So we know this. I want to kind of move on.
How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
Okay. So he's talking about the Epstein files.
So I really have just one question for you.
This is a good question.
How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
As far as I understand, none.
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No, you're not. You're not in the executive branch anymore. You are in Congress. You don't make the rules. You're not in charge. I know that's new for you.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people, but I'm going to answer the question.
How many have you indicted?
Again, the time
You're
belongs to
claiming my time.
The time belongs.
I think it's very
Reclaiming
interesting.
my time.
I think it's very
Reclaiming my
interesting.
time.
You can
When
reclaim
he
your
talks
time.
about they
Reclaiming my time,
indicted,
Mr.
the
Chairman.
president said they
Close the
indicted
clock.
him
Mr.
twice.
Chairman, please
They
stop the
sure
clock
did.
and stop the clock and restore his time.
Okay, here we go with
Committee will
these
get order.
theatrics.
The time
Reclaiming my
belongs to
time
the
and
gentleman
back
from
the
New
clock,
York.
please.
We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when
Reclaiming
you ask
my-
a question, the witness
question
gets to
was-
answer. You may not like the answer, but she
Right.
gets to
The
answer.
question was,
She has to answer the question, though. She doesn't get to just ramble off on some irrelevant point or dodge away on some deflection.
They don't like the answer, Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest.
Reclaiming-
So he asked a
reclaiming my
4-minute
time.
question.
Restore 45
and
seconds,
I am
Mr.
going
Nadler, please,
to
Mr. Chairman.
answer.
You can let her fill.
What was the question again? You guys remember what the question was? The question was, how many people in the Epstein files have you indicted or are you investigating? Very simple question. I don't even know why you would want to deflect from that question. If you are a good faith person, if you really care about justice, if you actually care about the victims of the Epstein files, why would you not want to answer that question?
Filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I
anything,
did tell you because we
washed
saw
up
what you did in the
loser
Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
time, and I should get back at least 45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I said that
Not too much,
already.
45 seconds.
Okay, I'm timing right now, Mr. Nadler.
All right.
Reclaiming my time. The answer to my question, how
You
many
can see the
offenses
Republicans, they don't take it seriously.
indicted, is zero. You have been the
I think
Attorney
it's a
General
game.
for a whole year, and your DOJ fired the lead prosecutor of this case, sat on evidence this entire time, and claimed falsely last July that they
so-
were more leads. It took an act of kindness.
We know that. We're hoping maybe she would actually answer.
All kinds of things. So we'll turn to the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes.
Ms. Bondi, you go right ahead. I'm over here.
Okay, I'm assuming this is a
Time is
Republican.
Thank you. First, he brought up the president saying they indicted me twice. They sure did. They tried to impeach him twice. And you, Mr. Nadler, were one of the leads on the impeachment. I was on the other side. I lived that with you.
This is worth pointing out. Who is Pam Bondi? She was Trump's lawyer during his first term for his impeachment. That's kind of, I mean, I'm kind of stretching logic a bit here. I don't think it's much of a stretch. That's probably why she's in the position that she's in now, right? Is because she was willing to defend Donald Trump during his impeachment. Now she's his attorney general.
Impeachment, you said the president conspired, sought foreign interference in the 2016 election. Robert Mueller found no evidence, none, of foreign interference in 2016. Have you apologized to President Trump?
So the first impeachment was not over Donald Trump's connections to, Russia or whatever, Russia hoax. The first impeachment was over Donald Trump trying to corruptly utilize the foreign policy powers of the United States, the State Department, to try to get the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, to announce investigations on Donald Trump's political opposition, Joe Biden. That's why. And part of the reason you know that it was a corrupt use of that authority was because Donald Trump hid that, hid those communications and whatnot from Congress's oversight. Why would he hide it? Because he was up to no good. Here's another thing that a lot of people don't know and the media doesn't really talk about. When it came to that whole instance of him trying to pressure Zelensky he was withholding foreign aid, by the way. He was like, we're not going to release this to you until you go on. He wanted Zelensky to go on CNN and announce an investigation into Joe Biden. He didn't have the legal authority to do so. Those funds were allocated by Congress. So that's number one. Number two is, if you want a foreign head of state or official or whatever to conduct investigations, a lot of people don't know this, and the media didn't report on it. There is actually an official process for making that request. He didn't go through that process. Why didn't he go through that process? Because he wanted to hide it from the public. That's the reason why he was impeached. It didn't have anything to do with Russia, or whatever.
Have you apologized to President
She's
Trump?
conflating
All of you
things on
participated
purpose.
in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump. You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president.
Nobody has to
I am not going
apologize. It's
have it.
free
I'm not
speech.
going
They
to put
don't,
up with it.
you know.
You know, all they want to do, the American people need to know this. They are talking about Epstein today. This has been around since the Obama administration. This administration released over 3 million.
I think, was it the Obama administration who charged him the first time? Epstein first conviction was in 2008. No, this would have been the Bush administration. Okay, I don't think we really had like the Epstein files during the Obama administration. I might be wrong about that, but I don't think we did. Now, we had them during the Trump administration. By the way, just keep in mind, Epstein killed himself He killed himself under Donald Trump's administration. That was during Donald Trump's term. Now, people have conspiracies that maybe he didn't kill himself. Maybe people killed him and did a cover-up. But just keep in mind, those conspiracies would have happened during the Trump administration. The Biden administration comes in. The Biden administration picks up the Epstein files and the Epstein investigation. And the Biden administration uses it to prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell. And they secure a conviction against Ghislaine Maxwell. They have other investigations that are pending during that time. When Donald Trump 2.0 comes in, those investigations were still ongoing. The Donald Trump administration, under Attorney General Pam Bondi, decides to end those investigations and not press any charges. So when people say like, oh, why didn't you care when it was during the Biden administration? The Biden administration was investigating and prosecuting people. Your administration came in and you stopped the investigations. You said you weren't going to move forward with any charges. You said there was no list. You said that, you said there was no list. You took Ghislaine Maxwell out of a high security prison, put her in a nice little, pampered security, minimum security prison. That's the difference. Honestly, there just isn't really an equivalency between the behavior here.
Pages of documents, over 3
It's
million,
based on the general public not knowing enough of the details.
To release all of those documents.
Again, he signed it because Congress passed it with a veto-proof majority.
And none of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow.
Merrick Garland prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
Oh,
you're a great stock trader.
okay.
I know you're Raskin. The Dow is over 50.
Child rape is okay then. Child sex trafficking is okay. We got the Dow over 50,000. Doesn't matter if our administration is corrupt. Doesn't matter if we're illegally applying the law. Doesn't matter if we're corrupting our entire system of government. The Dow is over 50,000.
50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7.
What a loser.
And the NASDAQ smashing records.
The funny thing is, they're so used to like the smell of their own farts, they actually genuinely think that this is the kind of argument that's going to resonate with the average voter. It's not. The average voter, the general public, cares too much about the Epstein case in child sex trafficking to be distracted by, oh, well, the Dow's doing good.
401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
Committee will be in order.
Mr. Jordan, am I going to get an extra 45 seconds added to my time?
The committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. Ms. Bondi, the Attorney General can respond.
Thank you. The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time.
Wow.
Crazy. They said it couldn't be done in 4 years, yet President Trump has
Who said it couldn't be done in 4 years? Nobody said that. They always do this thing like, everybody said Donald Trump couldn't put his hat on and walk at the same time, but he did it. So stupid.
Have fallen to a 4-year low thanks to Donald Trump. That's why they want to focus on Epstein and our most transparent president in the
Notice the change in
murder rate is
in tonality. Now she's got like the fake like North Korean worshiping dear leader tonality on now. It went from how dare you and you didn't go after Epstein and Merrick Garland, and now it's to the Dow Jones is over 50,000 thanks to the amazing success of the most beautiful, handsome man, the most incredible mind that's ever existed in the history of mankind. And we should all thank Mr. President Trump.
125-year low thanks to Donald Trump.
And Republicans eat this shit up.
Unprecedented. 9 straight months. There were 0 illegal border crossings at the southern border. That's what we should be focused on. All the great work that this president has done. And
I gotta be honest with you. I don't give a single fucking shit about immigration. I'm lying. I care a little bit about immigration. But our media, especially with the Republicans dominating over the past decade, has been out there to convince you that the only thing that matters in our politics is immigration. Everything's about immigration. I'm supposed to be obsessed with immigration all the goddamn time. Let me tell you something. I don't know if I've even ever interacted with immigrants. Maybe I have. I've never had a negative interaction with them. They don't influence my life at all. They're so irrelevant to me. Why do most Americans think that immigration is the biggest issue in the world? Are they getting assaulted by immigrants left and right? Are they getting frauded by immigrants left and right? Right? Most of these voters who vote for the Republican Party live in rural red states where they're probably not even around any immigrants. Why do we care about this issue? Because the Republican Party pushes it on all of us. They fearmonger it about it over and over and over again. They nail that point home endlessly. They never shut the fuck up about it. And so we're all supposed to care about immigration and pretend like it's the biggest issue in the world. It's not. It genuinely is not. The crime rate doesn't support it. The drug trafficking statistics don't support it. The job prospects don't support it. By the way, when Donald Trump came into office, unemployment was at a low. Employment, we were at full employment. So when they constantly talk about immigrants stealing your jobs and everything, statistically, that doesn't show up. That's not there. When people say, you know, immigrants are taking jobs that we want to do, sometimes it just sounds like a woke slogan, but the reality is it's statistically true. So why should I care about this issue? Because they want me to care about this issue. And in lieu of, or because we're only ever focused on this issue, there are a million other things in our society that we should be taking care of that we don't as a result. And I'm super annoyed and pissed off about this. I think the general public should be too. I'm gonna try to contain myself here. These people have wasted our country's time for a decade on an issue that is their pet issue to radicalize their voter base, wasting our time for a decade that we didn't deal with issues like infrastructure, like global warming, like housing prices, like the stagnation of wages, things like, I don't know, AI regulations, I guess. I mean, that's a little bit more of a modern issue, but you get my point. We could have dealt with a lot of these issues, but our entire focus of our body politic has been hyper fixated on immigrants because these people are obsessed with immigrants. They need to get therapy because they're so obsessed with immigrants. And most of them, they try to pretend like they're not racist, they're not bigoted, they're not biased or anything. But why are you so obsessed with immigrants then? Why is that all you can talk about? Why do you fearmonger about it constantly? I think you kind of have a problem.
We'll continue to do to keep America safe and to make Americans safe.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would note that Mr. Nadler's question has not yet been answered, but I want to start by asking that out of respect for the American public and the
Who is this?
survivors, some of whom, of course, are here today.
Miss Lofgren. I think I have a clip for this one.
The answers they deserve. I want to briefly direct your
Oh, right here. Okay. Let's skip to her because we're going to get to her later.
Into this room and start screaming at Mr. Raskin or me or anybody else and disrupt a congressional hearing. You have a right to protest on the street, but that doesn't give you a right to go into the Capitol and disrupt Congress. Something these guys talk about every day. You can't do that. So when Don Lemon said that he was exercising his First Amendment free press rights, freedom of the press rights, that's not really accurate because he was trampling on other individuals' rights. Is that true?
So with the Don Lemon situation, now he claims that he was just there to film, which would be his right. Their claim is that he was involved in this group that was there to like trespass essentially and harass these people. He claims that he was just there to document it as a member of the press. I'm actually agnostic to this point. I don't care enough about it to dive into it because I think it's too microcosmic with the macrocosmic issues that we're dealing with. But if it is the case that there's evidence that Don Lemon was like part of this group harassing and trespassing, then yes, he would be guilty. If it is the case that he was just there to document, that is First Amendment protection for free press.
Chairman, we will always protect our churches and the freedom of religion. And yes, that's accurate.
First right mentioned under the First Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom to practice your faith the way you think the good Lord wants you to, right?
That's right.
But they don't do that. They don't believe in that. They only believe in protecting like Christian nationalism. They attack Muslims. They attack atheists. They attack, I mean, not all of them. The Republican Party is kind of split here, but a lot of them are anti-Semitic. Whenever they talk about, oh, we're here to protect religious freedom. No, you're only here to protect Christians. That's all you care about because you are Christian and you have a bias.
Right, under the federal government.
And by the way, I support Christians' rights to practice their religion. I do, but I'm consistent about it. I protect Christians, I protect Muslims, I protect Jewish people, I protect Hindus. If you want to have your religious delusions, you're welcome to have your religious delusions. That's your right. I'll protect it. But I don't pick and choose like these people do and then pretend
Isn't it true that Mr.
that I'm doing
met
something
at
else.
a shopping center with the rioters who entered City's church in St. Paul, met with them prior to marching to the church?
Okay, so again, if there's evidence that Don Lemon was like helping facilitate this harassment and trespassing, cool. He's guilty of a crime. I'm fine with that. All right. I don't want to linger on this. I don't really care about it. Let's move on.
Yes, he did. Parking lot.
Lemon said, he said this on. So you can't do that. This is why this is, I think, so important that this guy be held accountable, and I think why you continue to be indicted to us about. He lied to us about when all this weaponization against the president of the United
By the way, there is a Republican by the name of, what is it, like Paula Luna something, whatever. She interrupted. She did kind of the same thing where she went to a church that was like an LGBT friendly church, and she was there harassing them. They told her to leave. She didn't want to leave. She was saying like, oh, you know, you gay people, gay is bad, LGBT bad, and you know, putting them down for being gay and all that good stuff. So it's just interesting that, again, these people, they're not serious about actually defending religious freedom across the board. They only care about kind of their political party and their political faction and their religious and ethnic faction.
United States started. And the intelligence led to the Mueller and to the impeachment and to the Jack Smith and all the stuff that's happening.
Okay, what are we doing now?
But it began here, and he lied to Congress about the role he played. And I just want to read
Who
a
did?
couple of things he said during that deposition before I give you a chance to respond. Mr. Brennan, when asked a question, said the CIA was not involved at all with the dossier. He said it was their purview, FBI's purview, and not ours. He also said the CIA was very much opposed to having any reference or inclusion of the Steele dossier in the intelligence community.
He's talking about John Brennan. I think John Brennan was... Okay, so he was the director of the CIA. I thought it was under Donald Trump, no? Oh, no, under Barack Obama. Okay. So it was under Barack Obama and George W. Bush. So looks like George W. Bush had him, where he appointed him. It looks like Barack Obama retained him as the head of the CIA during this time period. Okay.
Assessment. Well, that's interesting because declassified information that was declassified this past summer by the CIA says something entirely different. It says, Brennan, I'm going to put this one up if we have it. It says, Brennan ultimately formalized his position in writing, stating that, quote, this is released by the CIA Director Ratcliffe. My bottom line is that what I believe that information warrants inclusion in the report. He was further asked by an CIA official. The same officer said, when he approached the director and asked and that the director refused to remove it after being explained this wasn't good, with the dossier's many flaws, he said, yes, but doesn't it ring true? So this is John Brennan using that document to change intelligence community assessment, which I think led to all the stuff we've seen over the last decade. And I think this committee in the country, Congress in the country, like to know if...
Okay. For the purpose of this stream, I don't have time to dive into this specific story. I'm just going to table it. I'm not going to say anything one way or the other. I don't know enough. I don't remember enough. I do remember this story, but I don't remember all the details. So we're just going to move on. We want to focus on the hearing.
Investigate John Brennan. His attorneys have made some public statements, but the department is still bound, of course, by our longstanding policy of...
Okay, so it sounds like what they're asking for is I think they want her Justice Department to prosecute John Brennan, I guess, for what they're claiming is some kind of wrongdoing. Just keep in mind, like, they're constantly going after political opposition here, and they have a track record of doing fishing expeditions to try to make that the case, or judge shopping or jury shopping in order to try to get their political opposition. So it's kind of hard to take them seriously.
I can't confirm nor deny whether there's a pending investigation, but what I will say is no one is above the law.
Mr. Chairman,
Weaponization has ended.
The gentleman from Georgia.
Where at one point 1,000 personnel, General Bondi, it's been reported
we have Johnson.
There were at one point 1,000 personnel assigned to the task of identifying and scrubbing Donald Trump's name from the Epstein files. Were those reports accurate?
I believe his name has appeared countless times.
Okay, I think that if she can't answer this question straightforwardly, if she tries to dodge it, it's kind of like saying that the answer is no. Or the answer is yes, sorry. So he asked her. There was reports a little while back that the Trump administration shifted like 1,000 FBI agents who were assigned to other cases, other things like going after sex traffickers or rapists or violent criminals or fraudsters and everything, right? Taking those 1,000 FBI agents and putting them on the case of trying to redact Trump's name from the Epstein files. This was prior to the Epstein File Transparency Act came out, by the way. And so he asked her, were those reports true? If she doesn't answer with just a no, like if the answer was no, why wouldn't she just say no? If the answer is yes, then her behavior is probably going to be that she's not going to perjure herself in Congress by lying to Congress, but instead she's going to deflect around actually answering that question. And it seems like that's the direction she's going here.
If I could finish, I'm going to read you the stats.
I just simply asked whether or not it was true that it was 1,000 folks who were assigned that task. Were those reports accurate?
There are more than 500 attorneys and reviewers. I cannot give you an exact number.
And I wanted to ask you about that also.
That's not an answer to the question. She's citing like the number of people involved with redactions of the Epstein files in general. But he's asking, were there 1,000 FBI agents that were pulled specifically to scrub the Epstein files of Donald Trump's name?
So because this is a different question that you're getting to now, there were 500 DOJ lawyers and others assigned the task of redacting the appropriate information, including identities of the Epstein victim survivors from the Epstein files prior to their release. 500, is that correct?
If I could have finished my answer, there were more than 500 attorneys and reviewers who assisted with the. They asked the question and they don't want an answer.
That answers my question, ma'am, and I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on.
From multiple
Bondi, would you agree?
I don't know if he missed it or I'm just missing it, but I don't think he actually got a direct answer to the specific question that he asked. I think she managed to kind of skate out by kind of conflating things a little bit there.
General Bondi, would you agree that your 8 years of service as the state of Florida's Attorney General, the third largest state in the nation, served as an excellent preparation for your current role as Attorney General for the United States of America?
Not only that, I was a career prosecutor for 18 years.
And for 18 years. And for 18 years, you
ask a question and doesn't want an answer. This is theatrics.
Well, no, for 18 years, you prosecuted serious felony cases.
Okay.
You also, correct? Well, assault
what do you ask?
And child sex trafficking cases, correct?
Okay.
I think we've established that.
Yes or no?
Does he want an answer or not?
He wants a
I want a yes or no answer.
I think he wants the same
answer. Yes or no answer, but I'll live with what you have already said. Let me ask you this question.
Clearly,
in the prosecution of sexual assault cases, you are acutely aware of how important it is to protect the identity of victims.
Multiple.
The highly important.
Okay, now the reason he's asking this, you might ask yourself, like, why is he asking a question like this? Like, you agree, don't you, that it's important to protect the identity of victims? Like, of course she's going to say yes to that. Why is he asking that question? The reason why is because it's on record. If she answers yes to that question, if later on she gets prosecuted for her role in some sort of illegal redaction or lack of redaction when it came to the victims of the Epstein files, there's in record her sworn testimony that she knows, right? Because a lot of times with crimes, there's an intent element to it. There's the mens rea. You have to be like the criminal mindset. And so if they can establish here that she goes on record and says, I'm aware and I know, and I've known for a long time before I even came into office here, that it's important to protect the identities of victims. If later on they persecute her for something like this, she can't then say, she can't make the defense, her lawyers can't make the defense of, you know what, she wasn't aware that she had this responsibility and everything. No, we have her on the record saying that she was aware prior to this. That's the reason why he's going to this line of questioning. This is also why she's reluctant to just answer straightforwardly.
The people they accuse of assaulting them. Isn't that correct?
Excuse me. As we have said multiple times,
protection of
all victims
of the victims
are protected.
So very
who are
important.
protected under? Do you want me to answer or do you want to interrupt?
Well, because you're not answering the question. You do a Jekyll and Hyde kind of routine around here, and I just want you to answer my questions.
What does Jekyll and Hyde mean? Can you explain
it means
that?
you're nice.
You know what that means.
And you turn like Hyde on Democrats. But let me ask you this, ma'am.
So true.
The Epstein victim survivors here today. Representative Jayapal asked a simple question. If you would be so kind and honorable as to turn around and face their...
Okay, all right. She's probably not going to. Let's just move on.
Jeffrey Epstein, former Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew attended very...
I like Ted Lieu a lot. Ted Lieu's one of my all-stars.
...with Jeffrey Epstein. Under the law Congress passed, you are allowed to redact photos to protect the victims of Epstein's sex...
This is Prince Andrew.
You redacted the
in case you're not aware,
this victim's face
of the royal family.
You were following the congressional law, is that correct?
I'm sorry, that we redacted the victim's
Because you're
names?
following the congressional law, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You have now established that please put the photos back up, that we are looking at a sex trafficking victim. Under the federal...
Oh, I see. Okay, so I was wondering too why he was asking this question. He's asking this question because the redactions of identities are supposed to be for victims. So if this photo shows a victim, the follow-up question here is, why are you not investigating or going forward with charges against Prince Andrew if we've established that you know the person in this photo is a victim? Now, to be technically correct here, it's possible that this person is a victim, but they weren't specifically victimized by Prince Andrew. That's a possibility there. But it does put her in a tight spot because anything she says here is sworn testimony on the record. If later on we find out that this lady or whoever this is was actually a victim of Prince Andrew, then she's going to be in hot water because she has admitted and established she knew that this was a victim. Why didn't you investigate or prosecute him?
Victims Trafficking Protection Act. Not only is Jeffrey Epstein guilty, but anyone who patronizes Epstein's sex operation is also guilty of a crime. That's why I find it absolutely despicable that you sought to protect
That's a good point,
Epstein's
too.
clients like former Prince Andrew. Last July, you closed the case on Epstein's abusers. The July 2025 memo from your Department of Justice stated, quote, "We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties." These two photos, please put the photos back up. These two photos staring you in the face are evidence of a crime and more than enough evidence to predicate an investigation against former Prince Andrew. So I ask you, Attorney General Pam Bondi, why did you shut down this investigation last July, and why have you not prosecuted former Prince Andrew?
I don't believe you asked Merrick Garland these questions when he was Attorney General and set before
I agree with you.
You
I've
twice.
been claiming my time. I agree with you. I agree with you. During
You're not here
the Biden administration, I called for people looking at Epstein files. Merrick Garland dropped the ball, as did Attorney General Bill Barr, as did Alex Acosta, a whole string of failures. But you are in charge. You have the power to change things, to hold these men accountable, and you're doing the opposite. You're protecting them. So I want to move on to another man.
Can I answer
Donald
that,
Trump.
though?
I want to move on to another
Can I answer
question.
your question about protecting
You answered
Prince
the question.
You're saying no. I love this.
I want to discuss another man, Donald Trump, who is all over the Epstein files, like former Prince. Here's the video.
Sorry. It gets kind of boring sometimes watching this shit.
With Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
If she doesn't answer, that's kind of an answer.
This is so ridiculous, and that they are trying to deflect from all the great things Donald Trump has done. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed crime.
Donald Trump is the greatest president in the history of mankind. He is such a wonderful, beautiful man.
Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent.
Do they not realize how ridiculous they sound when they talk like this?
Trump asked
Chairman, please stop the clock.
to
Stop
sign
the clock.
the legislation. This is
Time belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay. I'm going to put up another document from a witness who called the FBI's National Threat Operations Center, because I believe you just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath, and this is on videotape. You said there's no evidence of crime. I'm showing you. Here is a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center.
Don't you
He drove
ever.
Donald Trump around
How
the limo.
dare
He overheard
you,
what
sir.
Donald Trump said to Jeffrey on his cell phone. He was so angry, he was going to stop the limo and hurt Donald Trump. And he met a girl who said she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She later had her head blown off, and officers at the scene said that could not have been suicide. No one at the Department of Justice interviewed this witness. You need to interview this witness immediately. Epstein should rot in hell. So should the men who patronize his operation.
That's pretty crazy, right? Why would you not interview that witness? Now, it could be that that witness, his testimony is not credible, but why would you not interview him at the very least? He's implicating, his witness testimony implicates both Epstein and Trump in both, sounds like, sex crimes and potentially a homicide. So if you're not interviewing that witness, is it because you're trying to protect somebody? Maybe the greatest president in the history of mankind.
And as we say here today, there are over 1,000 sex trafficking victims, and you have not held a single man accountable. Shame on you. If you had any decency, you would resign right after this hearing concludes.
The gentleman has
I did not ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Priority should be protecting Americans. In my past life in the California State Legislature, I did a lot of work on solving sex crimes, passing legislation to update our codes. And I found that the biggest challenge to solving sex crimes is reporting them. Victims have to have the guts to stand up to report those sex crimes. But it's not easy. It's the most unreported sex crime there is. Crime there is sex crime. Then we
Okay,
have adults who, as children, were molested, boys and girls, who will live in silence for the rest of their place in our society today. I hear 1,200 Epstein victims, some additional victims as young as 9 to 10 years old. The challenge I have today, what bothers me today about this hearing, Madam AG, is what's the message we're sending out there on Main Street? Our AG, the feds have your back. Do we have your back? Raise your hand if you're confident that we got your back. And that's the issue, Madam. Today, attacked sexually. These are the areas I'd welcome the opportunity to work with you on. It's not your problem. It's not my problem. It's our problem. But to have redacted files that are not showing us the names of these predators is wrong. These are very powerful people. This was a very expensive business, and we don't know who they are. I would imagine they're very prominent Republicans, very Republican Democrats, and we are covering up for them. We got to know what's going on out there, Madam AG. It looks like you want to say something. I'm going to give you the opportunity to address my statement.
I look forward to working with you on any crimes involving child sex predators.
He was diplomatic, so she gave him a diplomatic answer. But
AI, you are correct. AI is caused peril with victims of crime. I've experienced that with someone.
But there wasn't really anything new here, so I want to move on.
As I said, work with a victim, and I believe I've actually spoken.
Redactions are unredacted, those Epstein files, to make sure that the public, of course, the perpetrators in the Epstein files.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
Okay. So, if any man's name was redacted that should not have been, we will, of course, unredact it. If a victim's review is very low, but
I think we can do that probably on one of our members.
Okay, thank you.
What's this now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind me, I have 3 documents.
Okay. Slow down a bit. Thomas Massey. Now, Thomas Massey, and this might be interesting, Thomas Massey is actually a Republican, but he's one of the few Republicans who isn't like a cult member. And so he tends to be a little bit like very critical of the Trump administration. So let's see what he's got here.
The DOJ production that are emblematic of.
I think, was it Massey who put out a tweet recently saying, like, if I die, it wasn't because of myself? Massey tweet. Oh, it is him. Okay, so after this, he put out this tweet. Where is it at? Okay, this right here. So, dude, what's up with Facebook? Always like all pixelated. Okay, this right here. Even this is pixelated. But this is good enough. This is off Instagram. Okay. So it's pixelated, but you can see it. Thomas Massey, after this congressional hearing, put out, I am not suicidal. I eat healthy food. The brakes on my car and truck are in good shape. I practice good trigger discipline and never point a gun at anyone, including myself. There are no deep pools of water on my farm, and I'm a pretty good swimmer. Why would he put out something like this, right? Because he's probably receiving a lot of threats from Trump supporters. That's basically been happening since Donald Trump started running for office. And based on the actions of this administration, which has a tendency to be dishonest, to try to target people when it's not really like just to target those people, because the Trump administration has run cover for political violence on their side, because the Trump administration is hiring people who are guilty of committing violence, political violence on their behalf, it is reasonable to think that there's a possibility that he may be a target for assassination, either by a Trump supporter or by a Trump administration that is, how do we put this, fascistic. And so he's telling everybody, if I die through nefarious circumstances, through, not nefarious, but through questionable circumstances, I want you to know it's not because I killed myself. It's not because I made a mistake with like driving the car or with a gun or anything. It's probably because somebody killed me. That is the risks involved when you decide to criticize Republicans in the Trump administration, especially as a Republican.
The DOJ to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. To my right is an email that was sent by the victim's lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact, or sorry, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known. And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victims' survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators, fully redacted. And by the way, we're going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Your deputy attorney general.
He said, you can't hide from us.
Said,
I'm going to redact it right here in front of the American people.
But he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking, not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking. And then finally, what we have here, is, the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD302 release. These are the documents that we need, that you're holding on to and over-redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated.
What is FD302? I'm not familiar with that. Is the official form used by the FBI to document, summarize, and report on interviews with witnesses. Oh, okay. Victims or subjects in criminal. So this is a document that is an interview with a party that is an interested party, I guess, or a party that we're interested in.
How do we know?
Regarding
Because
some kind of
the
crime or
survivors gave
investigation.
Testimony to the FBI, and it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from.
So this is illegal. Any redactions that the Trump administration is making, per the law, they have to give the reason to Congress. Congress has, even if the public is not supposed to see it, they at least have to give Congress the ability to understand why it's redacted. I have to go back and read it. I don't know if the Congress is able to see the unredacted ones. I don't know if the law specifies that, but they at the very least have to be informed as to why this specific thing is redacted.
From the website. That we
And it sounds like they didn't give them that information.
Because we can't search the redactions. So I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times.
Yeah, I already told you that. This is where he's listed as a
Can I
co-conspirator.
finish my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm going to answer this question.
Reclaiming my time.
Mr.
Chairman,
how this works.
Can I have my time back? Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from.
All right, I'm reclaiming my
Can I
time.
give my answer?
So I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman,
Because
may
I
I
have
give my
another
answer on that?
Okay. In general, not later than 30 days after the date of enactment of this act, the Attorney General shall, subject to subsection B, make publicly available in a searchable and downloadable format all unclassified records. Okay, so it's not just that they have to give Congress reason for redactions. Congress must have access to the unclassified records as well. And so the fact that the searchable database that they provided to Congress includes redactions means that what they're doing is illegal. Blatantly illegal. In the possession of Department of Justice, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation of the United States Attorney's Office that relate to, number 1, Jeffrey Epstein, number 2, Ghislaine Maxwell, number 3, flight logs or travel records, including but not limited to manifest itineraries, number 4, individuals, including government officials, named or referenced in connection with Epstein's criminal activities, civil settlements, immunities, or plea agreements, or investigative proceedings, number 5, entities with known or alleged ties to Epstein's trafficking or financial network, 6, any immunity deals. Number 7, internal DOJ communications, including emails, memos, meetings, notes. So this number 7 is highlighted because that FD, 302 document would fall under this number 7. I think it actually, I think multiple of these numbers here would all, I think it would apply to those as well. But this number 7 is like very explicitly saying a document like that FD 302 has to be included. Or decline to investigate Epstein or his associates. Number 8, all communications memorandums or metadata concerning the destruction, deletion. Okay. Okay. All right. Anyways.
It's a political joke, and I need to give my answer on that.
We'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to the next question.
Within 40 minutes, you asked me a question. Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
There was one redaction out of
He's
over
listed as a
4,700, and we invited you in.
Gentlemen.
This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to. You're a failed politician.
Gentlemen,
You need to
I
go
want you to watch
on.
Just so you guys know, too, I'm also not suicidal. If they come after me, you'll know why.
Please restore his time and remind
Because they're afraid of the truth, and they're afraid of what it says about themselves.
the witness of the rules
There
here.
is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals.
Is that your position as well?
My position is any victim who comes forward, of course.
She's not going to directly answer that question because, again, it's under oath. If she says that isn't her position or it is or whatever it may be, that can be used later on in a trial to say, here is what you said under oath. You're legally held to what you're saying when you're under oath.
We would love to hear from them. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I'm reclaiming my time. I'm glad you're asking about Merrick Garland,
You don't get to reclaim
because
time
this is
when you
bigger
don't-
than
when you
Watergate.
when I don't answer the question the
This
way you
goes
want.
over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And that's where the
I like that response too. I mean, it diffuses the whole like, oh, you're just, my side versus your side. He's just like, you know what? Welcome. Every administration that's involved. They're not getting off the hook. I'm not going to disagree with you there. But guess what? You're responsible for your portion of this. And that doesn't go away no matter how much you want to blame other people. Whatever blame they have has no bearing on the blame that you have.
I want to know, at what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wessner was not a co-conspirator? Because our Epstein Files Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision.
on deep fake AI porn. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
Deep fake AI porn. I don't know if I'm for or against it. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but deep fake AI porn is worlds apart from actual real victims who are not just having their images shared, but who were sex trafficked and raped.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman.
Oh yeah, of course not.
I was wondering.
The gentlelady's allowed, the Attorney General's allowed to respond the way she wants to respond to any member's questions, Republican, Democrat.
I have unanimous consent request.
Gentleman's
That is technically true,
All right.
so,
This is an
whatever.
example. I'm submitting these 302 forms that are entirely redacted. Even when you go to look at them.
Not objection.
I'm submitting a witness statement. Nude
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Let's see what else we got here.
United States every 9 minutes.
Oh, this
The
one
vast
was...
majority of survivors never get justice, and that's one of the reasons why I think
I wasn't aware of this Representative Balint, but man, she brought the fire. She's going to roast her ass here. You're going to see. Watch.
the Epstein case has resonated so deeply with so many Americans. And the other reason, I think, is because it has revealed a 2-tiered system of justice. And the powerful are protected, and the survivors rarely get any accountability. And the Epstein files contain evidence of a multi-decade international criminal conspiracy involving some of the wealthiest and the most powerful people in the world. There's evidence of financial crimes, political corruption, sex trafficking, and of course, horrible sexual abuse. And I want to remind everybody, this isn't a game. These are real people, people who have suffered, who are sitting here with us today, and they deserve answers, and they deserve accountability. And I'm here to try to get some for them. Now, I've seen some of the unredacted Epstein files, and obviously, as you know, President Trump's name is all over them, but so are the names of other senior Trump officials. Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, John Phelan, the Secretary of the Navy, and Stephen Feinberg, the Deputy Secretary of Defense. These men were appointed by President Trump to senior positions in his administration. All of them have clear and confirmed ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Attorney General Bondi, yes or no, has the Justice Department asked Secretary Lutnick about his ties to Epstein?
Excuse me. Secretary Lutnick has addressed those ties himself.
I'm asking you, has the Justice...
Pausing real fast for a moment here. Should have done this earlier. If you guys like the stream, if you like my coverage, if you want to have somebody who can break down these things, actually gets into the weeds. I mean, we won't do it all the time, but gets in the can get into the weeds of the legalese, who can break down the legalese, who understands our political system, constitutional law, things of that nature, who has kept up with politics for such a long time that I kind of have a lot of these things, this knowledge in my back pocket and all that good stuff. If you like the coverage that you're seeing, if you want more of it, if you want to be informed, like, share, and subscribe, please. All right, anyways, moving on.
Justice Department specifically asked Secretary Lutnick about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein?
He has addressed those ties himself.
Has the DOJ asked Secretary Phelan about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't know whether he has addressed those or not.
Has the Deputy Secretary Feinberg talked to the Department of Justice about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein? Yes or no? Has the Department of Justice talked to Deputy Secretary Feinberg about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, which are clearly spelled out
When you don't answer, the answer to this question is the one that is incriminating.
in the files? It's a very simple question. It's not a trick question. I'm just asking you.
Yeah, I'm stunned that you want to continue talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Epstein
Okay, I'm
instead of a
reclaiming
border
my
patrol
time.
agent
I'm asking
murder.
you not a trick question, a simple question. Okay, so what is clear is
We need more of this energy. Just talk down to them. If they want to act like children, if they want to act belligerent, if they want to be involved in corruption, you don't have to pretend like this is all respectful and everything. Talk down to them. You're a congressperson. You're an equal branch of government, and you have the authority, you have the power. I'm asking you a question. And if you don't answer my question, then I'm going to treat you like a baby.
is.
Because you're
We
acting
have
like a baby.
evidence.
Do you know who Chris
Three
Malin is?
we have evidence that 3 senior officials within the Trump administration have ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And what
What
I
does
can
ties
conclude,
mean?
I can conclude
What does
from what
ties
you are
mean?
saying that you have not talked to them.
What does ties
So,
mean? Can
I
you
think
define that?
Americans would be shocked to learn that you are not interested in talking with these officials who have ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
What does
Across
ties
the
mean?
world,
Can you define that?
across the world,
Can you
prominent
define
men
ties?
who've been
I'm
exposed
lost to
in the files have resigned their jobs in disgrace. And that's a good first start. And that same
Disgrace is
standard,
not saying the word
this
Chris
same
Malin.
standard should apply here. And Americans want accountability.
Who is Chris Malin?
Was the president
he?
aware? Please stop talking. It is not your time to ask
Who was he?
questions. It is not your time. I'm reclaiming my time, Mr. Chair.
One second.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Vermont.
Was the president aware of Secretary Lutnick's ties to Epstein when he chose him to lead the Department of Commerce? Was he aware?
Chris Malin was a Border Patrol agent.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude that the president, in fact, did know about his ties because he was the next door neighbor.
She's not going to answer.
Oh, for goodness
For a
sake,
reason.
This is pathetic. This is pathetic, Mr.
Committee will be
Chair.
in order.
I am not asking trick questions here. The American people have a right.
I love this energy, dude. She's like, this is the energy you need. She sounds like a parent that's like pissed off and annoyed and like, we're not playing games here. Okay, I told you to clean your goddamn room. Clean your fucking room. You know what I mean?
To know the answers to this.
Gotta have this
You are
energy.
Senior officials in the Trump administration. This is not a game, Secretary.
I'm Attorney General.
My apologies. I couldn't tell. By 2008, we knew
True.
that Epstein was a convicted sexual abuser. And we now know that Lutnick went to Epstein's island in 2012. How was that not a deal breaker for the president? And why aren't you asking questions of the Commerce Secretary about what he saw when he was at the island, which he lied about not ever going to? Why are you not asking these questions? And I see that my time is almost expired, so I will say this. Do the right thing, Attorney General. Meet with the survivors.
She's not
They have been
going
asking
to.
for
You
a
know
year.
she's not.
Meet with the survivors. Do the right thing. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
May I have 20 seconds of his time?
That'll be up to the gentleman, but
Absolutely, Madam.
Thank you. Thank you.
So whenever you see like the Republicans will they usually go back and forth. They'll have a Democrat have their time, their 5 minutes. They'll switch to a Republican. They go back and forth, stagger like that. She'll usually when the Republican is next, given their time or whatever, they'll cede their time to Pam Bondi because they're working for the same political party and same political project. Go ahead and do your monologue now. It's your turn.
I was curious if you, Congresswoman, asked Bill Clinton that. Didn't see one tweet, not one. I didn't
Oh
see
yeah,
one tweet
yeah.
from Joe Biden
Well, what
at all.
about this person? What about that person?
Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once when he was.
Weak sauce.
And also, I want the record to
Yeah,
reflect
that's the kind of response that you need there.
anti-Semitic culture right now. She voted against a resolution condemning.
Oh,
Jewish.
do you want to go there, Attorney
time
General?
belongs
Or
to
do
the
you
gen-
want to go there? Are
Time
you
belongs to the
serious?
gentleman
Talking
from
about
South
anti-Semitism
Carolina.
to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust?
my time.
Really?
I reclaim my time.
Really?
The reason that it works is sometimes, people are like, oh, I'm tired of like the woke scoldy stuff and the, people get offended and outraged by everything. If she's actually Jewish, if she's actually had parents that were killed in the Holocaust, to try to accuse her of like covering for anti-Semitism, it resonates with people that like, you really want to go there? I'm Jewish. How are you going to say that about me? Like, people look at that and go, yeah, she kind of has a point there, right? And it's rich coming from the Trump administration, which has allied itself with the far right, with neo-Nazi conspiracies like the Great Replacement Theory, with characters like Nick Fuentes, and shared memes that come from like neo-Nazi accounts and everything like that. Like, you have no leg to stand on.
Attorney General.
And like some of us pretend, but the reality is, we all know. Right-wingers know, liberals know, centrists know. Everybody knows. We try to play these games, try to both sides of it. We try to like be polite to Republicans. Just for whatever reason, we feel like we have to be extra polite to them. Everybody knows that the majority of anti-Semites and neo-Nazis are on the Republican side. We don't have to pretend. We don't have to play games. We all know it's true.
Am I correct that under your leadership, the Department of Justice has prosecuted cases of non-citizen voting? So it's false, as some of my Democratic colleagues have claimed, that it doesn't happen.
Yes.
I ask that today because we're voting on the Save America Act today to enact common sense policies to ensure only American citizens vote in American elections and enact federal voter ID laws. But it's true, for example, that in just this month, a federal grand jury in Newark indicted 2 men with illegally voting in federal election and making false statements. Mohammed Mazamal and Mohammed Shakil were non-citizens at the time they registered to vote. This happens regularly, and you're prosecuting those crimes, correct?
Yes.
But does that prosecution of those criminals overturn their previously cast votes?
That's all pending.
But it does not overturn votes that they've cast, right? So it passes.
Okay. Now, they found some instances of voter fraud. You're always going to have some instances of voter fraud. This is like any organization, any system, you're always going to have a certain percentage of waste, fraud, and abuse. That's true. They have never established any kind of mass voter fraud. And so what they have here is we have two instances of people who voted who weren't supposed to be allowed to vote. It's bad. It's not good. Prosecute it 100%. Prosecute those people. Make sure that they, serve their time or whatever it may be. It sounds like maybe they're immigrants. Deport them. Do all that stuff. I have no problem with that. 2 votes when these elections are decided by thousands upon thousands of votes, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of votes. It's used as a way to over-exaggerate, fear-monger, and not really give people like an honest reflection of the scope and scale of that issue. There's a lot of issues in the country. This over-fixation on voter fraud and illegal immigrants, when the stats don't bear it out, it's political. It's not honest. It's not good faith. It doesn't really serve the American people in the long term. It serves to distract, to deflect, to blame, to not really deal with real issues.
No, Congressman.
Would help deal with that problem.
Yes, Congressman.
Second question. As Attorney General, you're in charge of the Executive Office of Immigration Review, correct?
Yes, Congressman.
The Biden-Mayorkas regime caused the immigration court case backlog to explode, correct?
Explode.
Does that sound about right that in September of 2020, 4 months before President Biden took office, there was a backlog of 1.5 million cases, but by the time President Biden left office, the backlog reached nearly 4.2 million cases?
So this is true. We've had a backlog of cases for our immigration system for a while. The biggest issue with our immigration system is that there are too many asylum cases, not enough judges and personnel to adjudicate these things in a timely fashion. The Biden administration put forward a bill. Well, they worked on a bill. It was a bipartisan bill. Republicans were actually the main architects of the bill, but Democrats were willing to vote on the bill. And the bill was an immigration bill. And one of the things that would have done is it would have provided resources to hire more immigration judges and prosecutors and whatnot. Not prosecutors, lawyers, whatever it may be. In order to deal with this backlog, in order to deal with the volume. And the Republicans rejected it. And they rejected it because Donald Trump told them to do so. Because Donald Trump wanted to, Mitch McConnell said this. Mitch McConnell said that the president said this. The Republicans Trump wanted to use it as a campaign issue. And you could see now throughout this entire thing, what I've been talking about is the use of illegal immigrants and immigration as a fear-mongering tactic. So the Republicans wanted to keep that fear-mongering tactic alive. They didn't want the issue to actually be dealt with under a Biden administration and make the Democrats look good and make that issue kind of not be an issue anymore. They need the issue to scare voters into voting and supporting their party and turning the other way when they do all kinds of corruption on the back end.
Sounds about right, but I don't have the exact numbers.
It would be accurate to say that most individuals correct.
Okay, let's skip ahead here.
Both sides of the aisle. With respect to that.
What do we got?
Twice and certainly more than.
All right, so some CBS News coverage. We'll skip this. I'm not really interested. Okay, what do we got here? We have Representative Deborah Ross.
The unanimous consent?
Yes, please.
All right, the gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Chair, I have a few unanimous consent requests. I would like to submit into the record this New York Times article titled Alex Pretty's Friends and Family Denounce Sickening Lies About His Life. I also would like to submit this Daily Mail exclusive interview with Vice President J.D. Vance titled J.D. Vance Refuses to Apologize to Alex Pretty's Family After Spreading ICE Assassin Claim. One more.
J.D. Vance did this during the campaign too. He admitted that he lied and made up a story about Haitians eating cats and dogs, but he literally told our national media, and it's so crazy that this happens, and we all pretend like the Republicans are normal. He told the media, like, if I have to lie and make up stuff and exaggerate in order to get people to talk about something, then that's what I'm going to do. Like, they're just blatant liars.
Last submission request is a New York Times article titled FBI Agent Who Tried to Investigate ICE Officer in Shooting Resigns.
Oh, let's read this up.
Without objection.
Thank you.
The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, I think you and pretty much everybody else here and throughout the country believes that convicted sex offenders don't deserve special treatment or privileges in prison. And yet Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, received perk after perk in prison. In July, she had a 2-day interview with your deputy and President Trump's former defense attorney, Todd Blanche. Just days after that, Maxwell was transferred from a federal correctional institution in Florida to a minimum security camp.
It's worth asking why. Why is that? What is the reason for that? Why would a person convicted of child sex trafficking crimes be given from this administration the ability to go to a lower security prison with more perks? There has to be some sort of give and take there. There must have been something that she was willing to give up to the Trump administration in order to secure that. Otherwise, what is the motivation? It's really weird.
In Texas, which she, as a sex offender, would normally be ineligible for. At this new facility, as the ranking member talked about, and by the way, it's nicknamed Club Fed. We've heard reports that she's been afforded special privileges, puppy time, private workouts, personal mail, secretarial services. Attorney General Bondi, does a convicted sex offender like Ghislaine Maxwell deserve special treatment and privileges in prison? Yes or no?
Let me be crystal clear on this. No. And let me keep going. No, let me keep going.
Perfect. Well,
I did not know she was being transferred.
I asked you yes or no.
She was not transferred to a lower
Mr. Chairman,
level.
please stop the clock and remind the witness of the rules. One rule she needs to
And
understand
I'm
here.
glad that we're agreeing. So when we're agreeing, we can move on to some other things. But I want you to know that every time she does get these perks, and it's been publicly reported, that the folks she's abused, the survivors who are sitting here, they see themselves as being denied justice. They feel re-traumatized. And I'm glad that we agree on that. But she should not be in that prison. And she needs to be moved back to a maximum security prison as soon as possible. But what she has told another committee here is that she won't cooperate with them unless she gets clemency from Donald Trump. It's just crazy to consider.
There you go. And that's probably what the motivation is that she is trying to get clemency from the Trump administration, and she's willing to, I think it's highly probable, I think it's plausible, that the clemency would be in exchange for clearing Trump and his associates' names. That she is a witness, right? She's going to be like a primary witness to all the sex trafficking, all this crime. So she probably knows like all the different people involved. And in order to secure clemency, the trade-off there is probably going to be that she's going to, instead of testifying to who was involved, she's going to testify that, you know what, they didn't do anything wrong. I can't make that claim as a like a fact. I don't want to get into sort of legal jeopardy for it or anything, but I'm just saying it's plausible, is it not?
That she can be wielding this kind of influence within the administration. But that begs the question, who ordered her to be transferred to the minimum security prison that she was ineligible for? Who signed off on the special privileges? Was it Mr. Blanche? Was it one of your other subordinates? So please, can you tell us who sent her there, since you don't agree she should be there?
She won't tell him a bit.
I said I do not agree she should receive special treatment. She was transferred, I learned after the fact, to the same level facility, and that is a question for the Bureau of Prisons. I was not involved in that at all. The same level facility, I don't know why. But, you know, instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, who hopefully will die in prison, you should be talking about Irina Zarutska,
I have a couple
who
of
died on a subway.
Right, and
Rather than talking about this, let's talk about this one-off isolated case of someone getting murdered on a subway because they chose to pick up that case in right-wing media. It's a deflection again.
You don't talk about that.
I have been talking about it and actually helping with these issues. But we're going to move back.
It's interesting, too, because Irina Zarutska, I don't know how to say her name, you know, whatever. She was murdered. I don't think anybody on the left or liberals or anything would say, like, oh, that's whatever. That's okay. Like, obviously not. But the interesting thing is she's an immigrant. Why is it that this administration is worried about that immigrant versus all the other immigrants that they love to characterize as evil, bad people? They don't really care about them. Why is it that in this one place they have empathy for an immigrant? Well, that immigrant happens to be like a little white woman versus like some Hispanic brown guy or some Muslim person. It's interesting where they choose to care and support an immigrant versus when they don't.
Back to you.
I bet we are.
Yes, of course, because you're here to testify. That's what the whole point of this endeavor is. So of course we're moving back to you. It is all about you. So as we heard, she
and fair
in response to every single question in that committee hearing.
The purpose of these hearings are congressional oversight of the executive branch. Pam Bondi is head of one of the most important agencies in the executive branch, the justice system, the chief law enforcement apparatus of the United States. The whole point of a hearing like this is for the congressional branch to make sure that they're holding the executive branch accountable. It is about Pam Bondi. That's what we're here to talk about.
Angled the offer of clemency. Should Donald Trump pardon or commute her sentence? Should she be released from prison? Yes or no?
She won't answer.
She dies there, so I'm hoping the answer is no.
I already answered that question.
Good. I'm very glad. I really like this bipartisan agreement about what should happen.
But But you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska. You don't want to talk about
I talk about her
murdered
all
by a
the time.
Deflect, deflect,
I am
deflect.
not here to testify before Congress. You are.
Will Pam Bondi answer the question whether or not Ghislaine Maxwell should get clemency? She just said a minute ago, she tried to sound strong on this, oh, she should die in prison. But will she answer the question straightforwardly? Do you support Trump giving her clemency? Yes or no? She's not the kind of person that will go against what Donald Trump says.
That is your
So I think she won't answer this.
with attack.
So I want you to know that your own DOJ employee, he's recently been demoted and had some other problems, advises on pardons. Do you think he will be advising Mr. Trump on any kind of clemency or pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell?
I'm not going to speculate, and you couldn't even identify properly. That's why you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska. You couldn't properly identify her relative.
I absolutely
it's embarrassing.
have been, and her family, by the way, appreciates all of the condolences, all of the help, everything that our law enforcement in North Carolina has been doing.
Okay, so she wouldn't answer that question, of course. Zoe Lofgren, I think we heard from her already.
The question has not yet been answered in public. We can have a transparent conversation and get the public the answers they deserve. I want to briefly direct your attention to two documents I'm hoping we will put up on the screen. In the first, an individual emails Jeffrey Epstein asking whether a woman identified as M was pro or civilian, and Epstein responds that she was a civilian, Russian, and fun. In the second email, Epstein writes to Steve Tisch about a Ukrainian girl, noting that she was, quote, a little freaked out by the age difference and stating that he would try to convince her not to return to Ukraine. He then instructs Mr. Tisch to call him, adding, I don't like records of these conversations. So I'd like to ask a straightforward question that really is either a yes or no answer. Do these emails constitute credible evidence, not proof, but credible evidence warranting further investigation into whether Steve Tisch was involved in Epstein's criminal conduct? Do you think yes or no?
I'm not going to play a yes-no game with you, but I will answer the question to the best of my ability. As I said, we will look and investigate any case involving any victim. I'm not familiar, there were 3 million pages, of course, with that email, but of course, we will look into anything. The documents have been released, 3 million, the redacted versions, we should have left them open for all of you to come view. I believe you viewed them, if not, will you have some copies?
I'd like to.
Can I finish, please? I'm not being rude, please.
I only have 5 minutes.
No, yeah, and I only have 30 seconds based on your filibuster.
But you didn't give a yes or no answer.
I mean, this lady let her talk a little bit. You know, usually they don't. Usually they just want like a straightforward yes or no answer to the question. She let her expand a little bit. But yeah, I mean, every member here has 5 minutes. So they want to maximize their 5 minutes. She probably has other questions she wants to ask.
So let me just go further. Director Patel testified in this committee room that there was no credible information indicating that Epstein trafficked victims to anyone else. And glancing at the documents, that's proves that's not the case. In July, your department issued a memo stating that it had conducted an exhaustive review of the Epstein files and concluded that no additional
Which was a lie, obviously, because she's not even.
The department.
Pam Bondi saying now that they needed time to review the files, and that there's 3 minimum. So we haven't looked at it. Like they just lied about
Justice
that.
Yesterday, I would note that 400 and all our 35 members are in the House, and there's 4 computers. So it would take many months to actually have the time. I only had a few
Why would you only
hours.
provide 4
I think the
computers?
transparency argument is really kind of a sham because it's not really
whoa.
possible.
Did you have to wait to get
It is not possible to really go in. I did, however, see a U.S. attorney information for the Southern District of New York indicating that there were additional survivors and probable co-conspirators. Other members of Congress had uncovered likely co-conspirators whose names were blocked out. Now, the Epstein File Transparency Act, which all but one member of this House voted for and the president signed, requires the department.
I'm curious, who was the one who voted against the Epstein Files Transparency Act? Epstein Files Transparency Act. Vote against. That's not the way I really wanted to word it, but it's probably get us anyways. Republican Representative Clay Higgins of Louisiana was the sole nay vote. Of course, it was a Republican from Louisiana. Not super surprising there. Okay. Why would you vote against that?
To release everything except that it needs to be redacted to protect the victims or an ongoing prosecution, which apparently there is none from the testimony we have received. I am concerned that this act has not been fully complied with. When Director Patel came to the committee, he admitted that up to 1,000 FBI agents had gone through the files and redacted President Trump's name from them. And it's pretty clear that what has been transmitted from the FBI continues to redact President Trump's name, even though he is mentioned thousands of times in these files. So I think the credibility of the department in terms of complying with the act has been damaged. And I think the department's credibility has been damaged in other ways. I think we all saw the horrible video of American citizens being killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis. And I think how the department has handled these cases raises a lot of doubt about the department. State and local police in Minnesota got a court order to get access to the crime scene to be sure evidence would be properly preserved by federal agents.
That's another thing about this administration is they've been violating court orders left and right.
But they took the agents.
So they're beyond congressional oversight. They're beyond judicial oversight because they're not complying. They think that they're just above the law.
Defied the court order, and in a departure from general policy, the DOJ is not collaborating with state and local law enforcement on these homicides. So I really think that is a disgraceful approach.
What are they trying to hide?
Homicides of American citizens, and really does nothing to bring credit to your department. And Mr. Chairman, I would yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
May I answer?
Attorney General can respond.
I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump, the greatest president in American history.
There we go again.
Maintain their composure. This isn't a circus. This is a hearing. I find it interesting she keeps going after Donald Trump. She doesn't say how much money she took from Reid Hoffman, did you? And nor did she.
Who's Reid Hoffman? Reid Hoffman. American entrepreneur, investor, and author. Is there a problem with her? I'm assuming getting campaign funding from him. Like, few of these feuds have been prominent as a crossfire between billionaires Reid Hoffman and Elon Musk. Is he in the files or something? Hold on. Reid Hoffman, Epstein. Elon Musk reunites feud of Reid Hoffman over multiple Microsoft directors unfazed. Their fatty at LinkedIn shared crypty. I don't know what this says. Flash over tech titans attack each other over latest Epstein files. I only knew Epstein because of fundraising. Oh, okay. So I guess he was probably in the files. It's questionable whether or not he's involved in criminality. But she's basically trying to say that this lady is like guilty by association because she was like associated with somebody who also had some sort of association with Jeffrey Epstein.
Chairman, regular order, please.
She posted nothing.
And even like saying association, it sounds like he just gave her money for her campaign. Doesn't necessarily mean there's much of a actual relationship there at all.
On her X account, on her Twitter account, during the Biden years.
Gentlelady.
And yet now, all of a sudden,
question
she's
asked.
going after
will be in
order. There was no question
be in
on
order.
the Attorney General. She doesn't just get to
Committee will be in order.
I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Committee will be in order.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
This whole-
Can say their point of order.
This older lady's so polite too.
When a witness attacks,
Not a valid point of order. You got to state.
She hasn't completed her point of order yet. Please let her speak, Mr. Chairman. Let's have some regular order here.
Regular order is you got to state the rule. And
I am trying to make a point of order that the witness,
what rule are you referring to?
without responding to a question, has attacked me personally. I think it's pathetic that she can't answer the questions and instead is attacking
That is not even close
members
to
of
the point of order. The gentleman.
Oh, mad. Okay. Jared Moskowitz. How many more of these do we have? I don't think we're going to get around to this video with the Epstein survivors and then the one with Legal Eagle. But what we might do is we might just save this for a follow-up segment on another day. But let's hear Jacob Moskowitz and then we'll hear Macbeth and we'll go from there.
I'd like to have unanimous consent to introduce the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7 dated September 25th, 25.
Objection.
The 5 Trump's Directive on Organized Capital Sun, October Freedom from Religious Foundation, Intercept article from.
We've known each other this morning. We've known each other a long. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Attorney General Bondi.
Good afternoon.
Oh, you're right. Good afternoon. It's been a long day. I wrote this morning. We've known each other a long time, and I'll always be appreciative for your assistance when you were Attorney General in Florida after the shooting at my high school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, in my hometown of Parkland when we passed a bipartisan bill.
This guy must be young,
which
I
was the largest
guess.
policy response to a school shooting in.
Or maybe it's just his alma mater.
Your
Kind of
department
thing.
also prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law a constituent of mine and former felon that had plans to kill me when he was picked up by law enforcement after he was target practicing in his backyard with 2 rifles, a scope, a silencer.
He's got a Harry
3,000
Potter book
rounds
on his thing.
of ammunition, and anti-Semitic manifesto. My name was the only name on their target list. And my
Which
kids
one
found
is
out about
this? And the Chamber of Secrets, Part 1? Oh, weak sauce. Yeah, I got that Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. You guys have a favorite Harry Potter book? I think mine was The Goblet of Fire.
from their friends at school. So thank you. However, the most transparent administration in American history
Before Trump, we didn't know the word transparency, apparently. It's been 12 months since you gave Republican influencers part 1 of the Epstein files. You said the list was on your desk. Then a memo came out and said that there was no list. Phase 2 of the binders never happened. The President of the United States says the Epstein thing is a hoax. He blasts his own base for wanting the release of the files. He blamed Barack Obama. Republicans voted against the release of the files in the Rules Committee. Then they refused to even return to the Rules Committee until they could be protected from future votes on the release. Speaker Johnson sends Congress home a day early before break. They sent the Deputy Attorney General to meet with Maxwell. She says something favorable about the President. Miraculously, she gets transferred to a minimum security facility. No one can explain why. Miraculously, the leaks to the Wall Street Journal stopped. We come back from break. We have the Massey discharge petition. Republicans drop a rule, a non-binding resolution trying to kill the Massey discharge petition. The White House says passing the Massey discharge petition is a hostile act, trying to stop the necessary 218.
Think about that for a minute. So basically, these are mechanisms that they were using in Congress to pass that Epstein Transparency Act that would force the administration to release the files. The Republicans in Congress initially tried to block it. And then Donald Trump, when they filed a discharge petition, and I'd have to look into see what like the actual mechanism of discharge petition is, but that would have allowed it to move forward. Donald Trump said it was a hostile act. Why would he consider that to be a hostile act? If he's not implicated in the files, why would he consider that to be a hostile act? If he's innocent.
Republican members that signed it, the White House brought them into the Situation Room, you know, the place where the president goes for time of war, promising things like appropriations or maybe even to primary them. People in the room say,
think about that too. The Situation Room, where presidents go with like usually like generals and stuff like that to be briefed on or watch like covert operations or like war things, right? It's like a war room. He brought Republicans from Congress, from a separate branch of government, which are supposed to check and balance each other. He brought them into the Situation Room to talk about the effort to pass the Epstein Transparency Act to get the files released. Isn't that weird? You use this room as the room that's like super, super secrecy. Also used for like war planning and watching those kind of like war operations. And you bring a bunch of Republicans in there to discuss like your opposition to the Epstein files being released. What does that say about the Republican Party?
you were there. It didn't work. We get the 218 signatures. We eventually passed the Massey petition. You guys didn't release the files. You were forced by Congress. Every member of the House except one and the entire Senate. The reason the president signed it is because it was a veto-proof majority. We can't agree on anything, and yet the entire House but one member and the whole Senate forced the administration to release the files. Kash Patel under oath said to Senator Kennedy, the FBI is not in possession of any credible evidence that Epstein trafficked girls to anyone but himself. We know now that's not true. According to documents, Epstein had a worldwide sex trafficking ring. Girls from Poland, Czechoslovakia, Russia, Paris, modeling agencies sending him girls. He even had a relationship with a summer camp where he groomed girls at a picnic table. Ghislaine Maxwell says 29 Epstein associates cut secret DOJ deals. Turns out there is a list. 6 names readily available if you unredact them.
That's interesting. I know that. So Ghislaine Maxwell claimed that a bunch of the co-conspiracies cut deals with the DOJ, secret deals. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Conspirators named, but we got them when you unredact them. Maxwell recently tells a House Oversight Committee that she wants clemency to release more names. Kash Patel under oath said Trump's name appears less than 100 times in the files. We now know that's not true. Trump's name appears more times in the Epstein files than God's name appears in the book about God. Okay, by the way, this is the Trump Bible. Move over, King James. Trump's name also appears more times in the Epstein file than Harry Potter's name appears in the 7 books about Harry Potter.
How what would the term? How heretical is it, by the way, to have like a politician that these people like swear loyalty to sell Bibles with like his branding, his persona being like the face of those Bibles. To me, it's like, and you see this online too, by the way. There's a lot of people that treat Trump like a god or like some sort of prophet from God. It's very perverse and heretical in my mind.
Nick says that in 2008 he went to Epstein's home, says he had a massage table in the living room. But Epstein said he got one every day, that it was the right type of massage. He and his wife decide to leave and say they'll never be in a room with him again. Howard then says, I'm sure the Epstein stuff is all on video. He was the greatest blackmailer of all time. Well, how would Howard know that? But now the files are public, and in 2012 we find out that he and his family are on Epstein Island after Epstein pled guilty to state charges. I'm from Florida. I take my family to Disney World, not to Epstein Island. There are documents in the files that dispute the president's claim that he kicked Epstein out of his club. Allegedly, the president said Epstein...
Yeah, just to drive this home, they've talked about it a few times. The Commerce Secretary, the current Commerce Secretary who Trump has working for him, for our government, was associated with Epstein. He says that he was aware of what Epstein was up to. He lied and said that once he became aware, he stopped associating with him. The Epstein files show that he was still associating with him. And after Jeffrey Epstein was convicted the first time, that Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, still took his family and his children to go to Epstein's Island after Epstein had already been convicted of child sex crimes. And that person is currently serving in our government. Republicans don't have an issue with this.
That he asked Epstein to leave. Supported now, that's disputed though, statements from the manager of the club. Now, Madam Attorney General, I have 25 seconds left. So because I'm curious, and I'd like to see, flip to the Jared Moskowitz section of the binder. I'm interested to see what staff provided on the oppo on me, and because we're in the Olympics, I'm going to give it a grade. I just want to see how good it is. So give me your best one.
So first of all, nothing is funny about mocking the Bible and holding up a Trump Bible.
That's not what he thinks is funny. What he thinks is funny is that you came prepared with a binder of insults and deflections. And the entire time you've been in this hearing, you've just been going back to the binder every time someone asks you a question. Oh, let me see, which member of Congress is this? Oh, let's turn to that page. Here's an insult that my staff provided for you. Here's another insult. Oh, here's a person in your state who's a criminal. Therefore, we're going to bring it up and then we're going to deflect away from the topic of this conversation. That's the part that's funny. And I appreciate him calling her out on that.
You made a joke, and I find offense to that. That's all I have to say.
I want it from the burn book.
Shame.
I want it from the burn book. Which is the best one? What you got?
And notice how it deflates that strategy. She can't even use it because he called it out preemptively. So she doesn't even want to go to the burn book and find a section on him and like insult him and everything. She has to deflect to something else.
Has expired. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Based. Okay. Now this is the last one, and I think this touches on a topic that I've been wanting to talk about in the description. Again, you guys, if you're watching this, if you like it, like, share, and subscribe. All right, let's move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bondi, as the Florida Attorney General, attorneys from your office have...
So to be clear, not only was she Trump's lawyer at some point in time during his first administration during impeachment, Pam Bondi, prior to working for Donald Trump, was the Attorney General for the state of Florida. That's the state that Donald Trump resides in. But it gets better. Okay, hold on. Gets better.
The appeal of my son, Jordan Davis's murder, which was denied. As a result of
fast forward a little bit.
And based on my extended life, just
first, Congresswoman, being the ones to Lake and
recent treaty act. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so your answer is why the recent treatment of families in Minnesota raises really serious concerns for me. Because shortly after Mr. Alex Preddy was murdered, administration officials referred to him as an assassin.
That's a good point, too. There is a bit of hypocrisy when they're trying to use this idea that you should be appreciative of our administration because if not for like our surging of ICE and the National Guard, you know, we're trying to protect American citizens. Well, you guys killed an American. You killed two. You've killed multiple people at this point. And you don't seem interested in doing a impartial, neutral investigation to see if any officers were involved in or responsible for some sort of police brutality or miscarriage of their role as law enforcement. So when you try to leverage this idea that you guys can defend yourselves on the basis that you're concerned with doing everything that you're doing to protect American citizens, well, it doesn't seem like that, because you guys have people in your administration who have killed American citizens, and you're not even interested in doing a neutral investigation to protect those American citizens.
And called Mr. Preddy the definition of domestic terrorism. They also lied about Mr. Preddy holding a gun and threatening officers. After Ms. Renee Good was murdered by ICE officials in Minneapolis, administration officials also accused her of being a domestic terrorist and investigated her wife in a clear act of retaliation. The statement Mr. Petty's mother made after the murder resonated with me more than you'll ever imagine. She said that, and I'm quoting, "The sickening lie..."
The reason she said this, because we skipped a little bit ahead in the beginning of this segment, is that her son was also murdered. So she says it resonates with her because she can understand how it feels to lose a son to murder
told about
or
our
to
son
being
by
killed.
the administration are reprehensible and disgusting, end quote. And I assure you, I know how it feels to hear lies that are told to justify the taking of someone's son. They were used by my son's murderer as a defense, and those lies still affect me today. He was called a thug, and he was called a gangbanger. And the attorneys from your office actually defended my son's name, his memory, and defended his honor. I'm certain that Mr. Petty's mother watched videos of her son, Alex, an ICU nurse at the VA hospital, using his phone to record federal agents. She also watched him getting pepper sprayed, kicked, hit in the head, and surrounded by at least 7 agents before having his gun removed from his waistband, which he legally carried. And she watched seconds later as 2 of those agents shot her son Alex at least 10 times.
This part's worth mentioning because everybody focuses on like the initial gunshot. If you watch that full video, the officer proceeds to like dump the rest of the bullets that are in that magazine into Alex Petty. Alex Petty was already shot at that point. He was already incapacitated. He was lying on the floor, lifeless. And that officer proceeded to shoot him more times while he was already dead.
Administration was
That's a detail that it doesn't get talked about enough.
And call him so many things that they wanted us to ignore the truth that we actually saw with our own eyes. Ms. Bondi, will you denounce the Renee Good under your assure? Will you do everything in as you are following same respect to the people we see? You told us received the same commitment to invest from the nation's council and the special officials to the withdrawal of investigative resources is simply unacceptable.
Yes, News.
Okay, that wasn't the segment I was trying to get into, but we'll just talk about it here. So one of the things that came out throughout all of this drama was that, like I was saying, when Pam Bondi was serving as the Attorney General in Florida, there was a case. Pam Bondi drops case. So the Trump University investigation. So there was this Trump University that Trump was running, which turned out to be kind of a scam, and people were suing him. Donald Trump makes a donation to her campaign of $25,000, which you can see right here. This is the check. This is from the New York Times website. And it says to the, what is it? I forgot what this says. Payment of and Justice for All. This might have been whatever political PAC or something that she's a part of. $25,000 by Donald Trump. Days later, Pam Bondi drops that case against Donald Trump. So think about that. When she was the Attorney General in Florida, she gets a donation from Donald Trump for $25,000, drops a pending case against Donald Trump's business. Later on, she becomes the lawyer for Donald Trump during his impeachment. And then now she's serving as Donald Trump's Attorney General. Let's just make sure, let's look at the timeline here. What is this, Crew? In March 2016, Crew discovered that the Trump Foundation had broken the law by giving an illegal, okay, I'm not sure how much this is true, $25,000 contribution to a political group supporting Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. Charitable foundations like the Trump Foundation are not allowed to engage in politics. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't understand that part. So that makes it even more, incriminating. Keep in mind again, Donald Trump's other charities, like he had one that was for veterans, and that one had to be closed because that business or that charity, not a business, sorry, that charity was found to have been engaged in fraud. So they were presenting themselves as a charity for veterans, but they stole that money from the veterans, committed fraud. So this is a pattern of behavior. This charitable foundation are not allowed to engage in politics. Even more problematic was the fact that the contribution was given to Bondi's office. Her office was deciding whether to take legal action related to Trump University. This would set off investigation, which would lead to one of the biggest stories of the year. Here's how it went down. Okay. February 1st, 2008. From February 2008 to May 2011, the Florida Office of Attorney General receives at least 22 complaints regarding Trump University, the Trump Institute, and related entities. August 1st, 2013, New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman files lawsuit against Trump. So it sounds like the previous Attorney General before Pam Bondi actually decided to file a lawsuit. The Trump Entrepreneur Institute, aka Trump University, and the former president of Trump University for engaging in persistent, fraudulent, illegal, and deceptive conduct. September 2013, the Orlando Sentinel reports that OAG told them, "We are currently reviewing the allegations in the NY lawsuit." A few days later, OAG tells the Palm Beach Post the same thing. September 17, 2013, Donald Trump Foundation makes a $25,000 contribution to And Justice for All, a political group backing Bondi. The donation, illegal for a 50c3, a private foundation, to give, was personally solicited by Bondi from Trump. October 15th of that same year, according to documents turned over in response to a Crew public records request, OAG told reporters that there was no consideration of whether to join the New York lawsuit in light of the fact that the Attorney General's office receives only one consumer complaint 2.5 years ago, and there is no investigation at this time. Okay. Now, this could be coincidence that these timelines kind of match up together, but it's kind of suspect. October 17th of that same year, the Tampa Bay Times reports that And Justice for All, again, that political action group. Just make sure. A political group associated with Bondi. The Tampa Bay Times reports that that group acknowledged receiving the contribution from the Trump Foundation. October 18th, the next day. Despite previously acknowledging the 22 complaints, sometimes 23 due to duplicate records to reporters, internal emails show that between October 17 and 18, the OAG employees weeded out any complaint about Trump Institute and related entities to claim there was only one complaint against the Trump University. So they lied. January 1st, 2014. In its 2013 taxes, the Trump Foundation claims it made no donations to political entities and replaced And Justice for All with a different similarly named group in Kansas to which they would legally be allowed to donate. So it sounds like right here, would this be fraud? I'm not sure what the specific crime would be, but it sounds like they were lying about their financials. And the lie was related to a crime that they were committing. March 21st, 2016, Crew files complaint against Trump Foundation. March 22nd, Trump representatives admit to the illegal donation, blaming an increasing series of clerical errors. Oh shit, I didn't mean to go there. May 17, Crew Executive Director Noah Bookbinder writes an op-ed in the Tampa Bay Times summarizing some of the troubling findings in the Trump Foundation's 990 forms. June 6th, Bondi's spokesman tells the AP that the Attorney General was unaware of the 20-plus complaints against Trump entities when she solicited the donation. June 7th, 2016, Bondi tells the Tampa Bay Times, "I was never, nor was my office, investigating him. I would never lie. I would never take money. I've been obviously devastated over this. Donald Trump is the greatest president in the history of mankind." I'm just kidding. I made up that part, but that's what she sounds like usually. July 6th, Crew files complaints against Bondi with the Inspector General for Florida's Office of Attorney General and the state's Commission on Ethics for potentially violating the law by failing to investigate or take legal action regarding complaints against Trump University and related entities after an affiliated political organization. Okay. August 8th, Crew files an IRS complaint, including payments to groups that came to campaign rallies. September 1st, following Crew's discovery that Trump Foundation did not file an updated 990 form, the Washington Post discovers a $2,500 IRS penalty paid by the foundation for the illegal donation, kicking off one of the biggest stories of the year. Okay. All right, so you get the idea there. So, what do we gather from all this? Is Pam Bondi a legitimate attorney general who's interested in upholding the rule of law as the chief, #1 law enforcement officer for the entire country of the United States, the most powerful country on the face of the planet? Or is she a corrupt political operative serving the Republican Party and specifically Donald Trump and allowing for illegality in her administration and corruption of her administration in order to facilitate this corruption? I'll let you be the judge. And with that, I end the stream. Again, if you like it, like, support, share, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.